Good morning, everybody. I know we're missing a couple of members that are stuck in traffic, but let's get started anyway. I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who have joined us today for this meeting of the Highways and Transport Committee. The County Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and post to social media during the meeting. Can I also that everybody present turns their mobile phone to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting takes place? Please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the County Council's website. There is no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, please do leave by the nearest marked fire exit and assemble at the rear of the building. Good morning, Councillor King. I would like to start by acknowledging a member of this committee, Councillor Mac Maguire, who obviously passed away recently. Mac had such an influence on this committee over many years and was an integral part of it. He was passionate about transport and passionate about improving things for his residents. He was always somebody that when I joined and became chair of the committee, I know I could talk to and that would always offer the best advice in the interest of residents. And he was always keen on making things the best they could be. So if I could start by just asking everyone if we could have a minute's silence for Mac and the contribution he had. Thank you, everyone. Next up, I'd also like to welcome Jeremy Smith, who is stepping up as Assistant Director of Transport Strategy and Network Management. So Jeremy, welcome to this meeting in your new role and thank you for all the work that you do as well. We'll be hearing from you later, I'm sure, for various other things. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence and declarations of interest. I know Councillor Machini is just arriving, so that's brilliant. We now have Councillor King. I'm hoping Councillor Shaler is on his way in a second too. But Democratic Services Manager, would you report any apologies for absence or declarations of interest?
Thank you, Chair. Received apologies from Councillor Brian Milnes and Councillor Lucy Netzinger substituting for him, and Councillor Jerry Bird and Councillor Machini is substituting for her.
Brilliant. Members, do I have any, does any member wish to declare any disclosable community interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair, and my apologies for being a little late. Yes, I'd like to declare a personal interest as a member of the Cambridgeshire Local Access Forum, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. And yes, I think it's a bad transport day for quite a few people being late, which is quite pertinent for this committee. So that's good. So the next item, we are being asked to approve the minutes of the Highways and Transport Committee meeting on the 5th of December 2023 as an accurate record. Does any member not agree with that or have any comments to make on those? No? Brilliant. I will approve those then. We are being asked to note the updated action log. Can I ask members if they have any comments or questions on it? I was looking at you, Councillor King.
Yes, I'm sorry, Chair. This Wisbech Access study, I noticed that it says ongoing. I'm always a bit suspicious about that. I really do think we need something a bit more definite in that column than just ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think we wrongly recorded that action. The action was to provide an update on progress on the Wisbech Access strategy, which has been emailed to Councillor King and circulated to all members. So the accurate update there would be action complete. We will update further on the WisBeats access strategy at an appropriate point.
Thank you, David. Brilliant. Does anybody or Councillor
Chair.
Kidd, do you want to come back with on?
No, just say thank you, Chair.
Okay, brilliant. Yes, Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back on the WisBeach access strategy, I noticed, thank you for the note, David. Presumably, we're looking at this, the funding will come from the CPCA, so we need to be, dialogue needs to be with them really, in terms of, so that's the next step, if anything will happen on it. Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Do any other members have anything? Yes. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at this update, and when I read the first, this is again about WisBeach access strategy. When I read the first page, it sounded quite encouraging. However, when I turned over, I was very, very depressed, because basically it's telling us it's reached at such a stage that at this moment in time, there's no further work going to be done on it. Am I right?
David Allen, do you want to come back on that one?
I think it's the case that there's no further work required on the case, which is positive. The next key activities in terms of identifying and securing funding, and that will be the next stage, securing funding. But the technical work required to do that is essentially as far as it can be.
Right, I understand that. Are we actively looking for funding to continue this? And what's the likelihood we'll get it? And when are we likely to get it?
So the answer is yes, we are actively looking for funding opportunities. Each funding opportunity that materialises comes with a different set of requirements, and we have to consider, do these proposals satisfy that? So as far as the likelihood and when, I can't answer that at this point, but we certainly are alive to any and all opportunities, whether that be through the combined authority, central government, or another.
Thank you very much, David. Any other members have any comments on the action log? No. Okay, brilliant. Item 3 is petitions and public questions. We received 2 requests to speak, and I will take those during the relevant agenda item. The next item on is the business planning financial plan for 2024 to 2029, and this starts on page 19. Before I ask Frank to introduce the report, can I first note that we are scrutinising the proposals set out in this report to inform the Strategy and Resources and Performance Committee when then considering the proposals at its meeting on the 30th of January for any recommendations are made to February's full council. Given the wide range of the content, I suggest that we take the report section by section. I will then ask members if they have any questions on that for officers, and then any issues they would like to debate before moving on to the next section. At the end, I will ask Frank to summarise what the feedback is the committee has concluded to the report to be reported to the Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee. I will ask members if the summary is correct, and if not, any changes we agree need to be made. Frank Jordan, Executive Director for Place and Sustainability, can I ask you to introduce the report?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. So as the Chair has just outlined, the purpose of this report is for all members of the committee to scrutinise the business planning proposals for 24-25. It enables members to scrutinise officers on the proposals, seek clarifications and assurances regarding these proposals. It will also enable the committee to provide advice and recommendations to support the proposals being considered again by the Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee on the 30th of January before they make a recommendation to full council. Before I move forward, just to highlight, we've got Michael Hudson in attendance to support this item. We've also got Sarah Hayward online, who's the business partner for Highways and Transport, and we have, of course, the service director and the assistant directors for Highways and Transport. So between us, we think we should be able to answer your questions.
Brilliant. Thank you, Frank.
We finished. So, as the Chair has outlined, we'll take notes on all your questions and clarifications requested and any suggested recommendations. We'll summarise those at the end to make sure we've captured all those so that they can be considered fully by Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee. So, as outlined, the report summarises the business planning proposals that were presented to the Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee on the 19th of December on the matters that relate to this committee. And the report is structured as follows. So section 2 provides an overview of the corporate financial position. Section 3 provides an update on the contribution made by services and the committee in relation to the strategic framework and ambitions of the council. And section 4 provides information on the proposed changes to the revenue budget, an update on the capital programme, and a schedule of revised fees and charges for services provided by the services within housing transport remit. So when I hand back to you, Chair, we'll go through each section in turn and take comments on each of those sections and take questions. But however, before doing so, just highlight some of the key points in the paper. So section 3 of the paper, as I've outlined, outlines the contribution that the committee has been making to the strategic framework of the council and the 7 ambitions, the principal contribution being to ambition 2. And it outlines some of the examples of the successes to date, such as investment in service treatment programmes, the delivery of 20-mile-hour zones, the civil engineering apprenticeship programme, and delivery of 60 local highway improvement schemes, just to name but a few of the successes that the committee has overseen. What I think would be particularly useful to highlight from this section is 3.4. It highlights the feedback we received from those residents that participated in the quality of life survey. And in this survey, 76% of those who responded said that they were dissatisfied with the condition of the highway. So therefore, in these proposals, you'll see there's £9 million of revenue to be planned to be invested in highways over the period of 24 to 26. And of this, £2 million per year will be used to create a capital programme of 40 million for highways maintenance and management. Section 4 summarises the proposed changes in relation to inflation, pressures, savings, income and investments. This is broken down in table 3 and there's further detail at appendix 1. But I would just draw attention for the committee to the key elements in terms of these proposals. So at 4.41, that provides further information around what I've just outlined in terms of the investment of £9 million worth of revenue and how that will be used to create a revenue programme of £3 million and a capital programme of £40 million to support improvements in highways maintenance and management. There are savings also proposed as part of these business planning proposals. The 2 particular ones that highlighted is the continuation of the delivery of the street lighting project around replacement of lanterns to LEDs, which were delivered just under £1 million worth of savings in 24-25, and the highways material recycling facility that will enable waste to be recycled and reused to deliver a saving of £150,000. Also, as part of these proposals, there are proposals to increase income to support delivery of highways and transport. So there is a review of car parking tariffs. It also highlights the increased income that we are already receiving in relation to street works, which is also included in these business proposals. And in addition to that, as I've outlined, Appendix 2 provides a full schedule of all the fees and charges for services that are provided by highways and transport, which the committee would need to review as well. And then finally, the capital programme at section 410 provides a summary of all the key components of the total capital programme for highways and transport for 24 and 25, which is a capital programme of 74 million. The detail of that can be found at Appendix 1 on page 18 is where the highways and transport elements are considered. So I'll hand back to you, Chair, and as we say, we'll take each part of the report in turn and officers will be able to take questions. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Before we do that, we have received a request to speak on this item on behalf of Linda Worth, the County Access and Bridleway Officer of the Cambridge British Horse Society. Thanks for coming along, Linda. Standard rules apply. You have 3 minutes to address the committee. Yes, if you press, it's the button in the middle with the kind of the face. If you push that, it should light up and just bring it slightly closer to your face probably. And thank you very much. Off you go.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Today I'm speaking on behalf of the Ramblers, the Trails Trust and the British Horse Society. The intention of Active Travel, LTM 120 and the LC WIB is to promote walking, cycling and wheeling on hard surfaces, often tarmac, in urban and semi-urban settings. Application of these policies to green public rights of way has a negative impact by displacing ramblers, dog walkers, off-road cyclists, runners, equestrians, wildlife and biodiversity. Urbanisation of a peaceful rural setting impacts on physical and mental well-being for all users. Every recent project to improve the bridleway network has resulted in loss of natural green surfaces, Reynolds Drove, Wilson's Road, Mere Way. The Surm to Wickham Path design approved by this committee involves hard topping the historic grass surface of a 2.25 kilometre rural path. This is all contrary to the Council's own climate change and environment strategy, which recognises natural capital and undertakes to invest in and protect our natural environment, on which we all rely for health, well-being and wider benefits. It is also contrary to the LTN 120 guidance for rural areas. £400,000 revenue over 2 years and the further £1 million capital for improvements to the public rights-of-way network would be welcome, but not solely to support active travel, promoting walking, wheeling and cycling with a perceived need for hard surfacing. Hardtop on green rights-of-way does not represent the improvement in user experiences regardless of transport mode claimed in this proposal. Where is the data on the numbers of soft surface users to inform these proposals? This committee has an obligation to protect the green public rights-of-way network as an important, much-needed element of the county's natural capital. Improved maintenance of the public rights-of-way network is welcome, but not where it results in change from natural to hard surface. Please, can the committee build this caveat into any approval today?
Thank you very much, Linda. Very well received. Michael Williams, Assistant Director of Project Delivery, will respond.
Thank you, Chair. The proposed investment in highways will be directed to the benefit of all road users. This includes equestrians. Our approach to the delivery of active travel includes equestrians and other user groups that may not be explicitly defined within the documents. Walking, wheeling and cycling are the sustainable modes of travel that are seeing the most growth, and as such are the areas that investment in highways can have the most benefit towards achieving net zero. The public rights of way investment theme will see improvements to access points, improving accessibility, signing and wayfinding, as well as bridges and surfaces, providing benefit for all users regardless of how or why they use them.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, let's turn to the budget in question. I'm going to go slightly off our script here, and I'm going to ask members if they have any questions on section 1, 2 or 3 of the budget proposals. Councillor Daunton.
My question is on section 3, if that's okay. The section headed delivering the council's strategic framework. So in 3.2, we're looking at the year 23-24 and the delivery of 54 drainage maintenance schemes. And then in 3.5, we talk about drainage cleansing and management. Please could you explain the difference between those and where the additional funding is going? And I'm obviously very pleased that we're looking at additional funding in highways maintenance.
Thank you, Councillor Daunton. I'm going to hand over to John Monslow, who's the Assistant Director of Maintenance. John, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The difference between those two, thank you. Yeah, let me explain the difference. The specific schemes are where we carry out structural intervention on a pipe. So that may be taking out an old pipe that's too small and then increasing the pipe size, or carrying out that more physical replacement and replenishment of the drainage assets. The cleansing and management is more the day-to-day gully emptying, cleaning out soakaways so that the drainage infrastructure that is there can function more fully.
Thank you, Councillor Daunton. Do you have a follow-up there?
Yeah, I do. So given the importance of drainage, particularly as we're seeing more and heavier rainfall, I'd like to be reassured that both the capital interventions and the regular gully clearance are being maintained and enhanced where possible. I'd like to see the two running together and have reassurance that the two are running in parallel and effectively.
Yes, the two themes of drainage management work, they are managed together, so that where drainage cleansing and the minor maintenance indicates that there is major work needed, that then drives the programs of more major work. So we can, we enhance what we are doing within the funding that's available.
Thank you. Councillor MacDonald.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to John, and thanks to the officers putting together the programme coming back to the gully cleaning, which Councillor Daunton mentioned. You know, I think, first of all, it's really, really welcome news that we're looking at this in such a comprehensive way. I think we all remember, you know, a period where there was little or no gully cleaning done, and every single one of my parishes observed that for a long time. So this is really good news. One small thing, we're getting regular updates now on the cyclical programme, which is fantastic. The only slight downside, John, is one of my 11 parishes is included so far. I'm kind of assuming that's because they're going to be on a cyclical programme and they will appear somewhere. If you could just confirm that that is the plan, because they're feeling a little bit left out, but well done for doing everything else at the moment. Thank you.
John, do you want to respond to that one?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And yeah, thank you for the recognition of the teams in improving our drainage management. And yes, we are working around the network on a cyclic basis, so we will get to all parishes. I am asking the teams, and we will be publishing a full programme at the start of next financial year, so all towns and parishes and communities can see where they are on that cycle over the whole year.
Thank you, John. And just to come back on that myself, obviously, communications is one of the big things that we're working on, and particularly communications with councillors at the moment. So I'm really, really glad to see these reports coming out. I know that right now everything is not in a perfect for councillors form. We are working to get towards that, but it is really good to see this coming forwards. And thank you to the team for putting that out there, because I think it is useful to all of us. Next up on my list, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say how delighted I am to see that the improvements to the A10 between Ely and the A14 are being highlighted on 3.2 near the bottom. And also I'm very pleased to see that there's spotlight going on the crossing of the A10 at what we know in Ely as the BP roundabout. And it's been a thing that's concerned my residents and the residents of the area for a long time. And I actually get some comfort from seeing it here. And I also get some comfort, Chair, to see that you're chair of the A10 improvement. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hunt. Councillor King.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to pick up on the response that the officer gave to Linda Worth. I would like to suggest that we do include a specific acknowledgement, there's an echo, a specific acknowledgement to the value of the questions in the documents. He said that that wasn't there, and I would like to see it put in, and I don't see any reason not to. So can I make that suggestion, Chair? Thank you.
Let me come back to you on that one in a second, Councillor. Oh, David Allen, do you want to?
Yeah, I think the in the context of road maintenance, hierarchy work, we can take that away and just ensure that that's drawn out more clearly in the detail.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor King. Next, I've got Councillor Sharp. Just to remind everyone, this is questions on section 1, 2, and 3 as well, just to keep everyone focused. But Councillor Sharp, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'll try and keep it up. Yeah, I'll touch on, first of all, just if I can come back on what Linda BHS was saying. I totally understand and support that. And it's at I think it was the previous meeting, December meeting, we did have on the Soham to Wickham footpath, or we did have Cam Cycle actually complaining that it wasn't up to the total tarmac standards. So we need to be in the rural areas. If we can get more footpaths that aren't, tarmacked, we're actually getting more accessibility out into the countryside. I think we need to be, pragmatic about that. But that's a comment. And then the second point, and I haven't even started what I was going to ask a question about touching on what Councillor MacDonald mentioned about gully cleaning, and it's a shame one of his parishes isn't included. I'd like somewhere in East Cambs included, because on the current programme, there's nothing. So I'd be interested to see when that's going to happen. Going back to questions, the first one is on section 3, page 50, the street light energy savings, where it talks about savings 24-25 going on to 26-27. Because this committee agreed last year to spend 13 million on LED lighting to make savings. My having looked at my note or the paper that came to this committee in December, it was talking by 26-27 savings of 2.4 million. Now, perhaps I'm missing something here, or I'm looking at the wrong bit. But that would be my first question.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. I'm just going to quickly come back on some of your other points.
Yeah.
With the equestrian use, it's incredibly important, and that's why we've also been looking at our non-motorised user design guide. And I think where we come to those things, it is a really difficult one, and we do need to make sure that we work that out. On the second point about drainage, I think one of the problems we face is that when we start putting information out there, it then actually adds to about 20 or 30 more questions. And I'm going to push back on you slightly on that one. I think all of us would like to see more drainage clearance in our own areas, and we will get to publishing that full programme. But I think it's great to have information starting to come out, even if it's not complete at this point. On to your question, though, I'll hand over to Frank to answer the finance question.
Yeah, thank you. So in relation to the programme around the LED programme, so it's £1 million in 24-25, but then there's a profile of savings in the following 2 years as well. I don't know if Michael could just provide a further update on that profile, which will total the total amount of savings over the 3 years. So Michael, could you just clarify that, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah, that is correct. And also the key part of the paper that we presented at the time was in relation to the intrinsic link between the energy prices and fluctuations, and actually the payback period for that as well. So these are the current payback periods based upon our current forecasts, but clearly between now and future years, inflation and the energy prices may fluctuate. But yes, that is correct, Frank. Thank you.
Chair, if I could just have that's detailed at 4.43 that provides the profile for each of the years. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Frank. Councillor Hay. Oh, Councillor Sharp, did you want to come back
on that? It's not what I'm seeing on the table, but perhaps from what Michael's saying, that there are price changes. Maybe I'll take that offline and have a discussion around what was in the paper in December compared to what I'm seeing on here. I did have a couple of other points, actually, very quickly. On page 57, we've got and this is still in section 3, yes. The capital programme. Have we got any details of that capital programme yet? Because presumably, I know we've had this discussion offline. Certainly in terms of this is on the further highways prioritisation. The 20 million.
I think there might be confusing tables and sections. I think that's section 4, which is when we come to talk about future investments.
It's on section 3, but it's section 3, table 4. I'll leave it till later if you want me to.
Okay. Then sections look slightly different to mine then. That's okay. We'll talk about that under section 4 if that's okay, because we do need to talk about the investment. Did you have any more questions on section?
I'll leave it for that for the moment.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. My question is also on the Cyclic Gully programme. I received on the 19th of the 1st the latest copy, which is dated the 22nd of 11/23. And so far, all we've seen is the programme for the South and the West. I would like to know what was the rationale for doing the South and the West before any work is done on the North and the East. And who made that decision? Because we desperately need Cyclic Gully cleaning programme in the North, certainly, because we have flooding problems.
John, did you want to come back on that one?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, in general terms, the cycle runs over roughly 2 years. So each year, different districts get the regular visits. So where we decided to start, I think that goes back a number of years. What we do at the same time as the cyclic emptying is where there are reports of block systems that are indicated to be causing issues or are in fact causing issues on the highway, then we do go out and do a targeted approach to cleanse those systems to try and alleviate the flooding, and that's on top of the cyclic maintenance. As I said earlier, we will be at the start of the new financial year publishing the long-term programs, and that will include the full year of the gully emptying, so everyone can see where we plan to be throughout the year.
Just come back on that. I'm pleased to hear that you are going to be publishing the long-term plan, because I've been asking for it for the past 6 months. And I can't see why I haven't been able to be told that it will fall within a certain period.
Thank you, Councillor Hay. I think it's important to reflect that obviously when we do areas, we tend to go around in a circle. When we came in as administration, obviously the first thing we had to do was actually map where all the gullies were. And there was a deep problem of not even knowing where a lot of the gullies were when we came as administration. We have now obviously done the majority of that work and are now able to actually form a proper gully clearing program to go around doing that. We are also using Carbon Tech, which actually allows us to properly map and record when they're empty, to make sure that we do actually keep that record accurately and reflect upon it. So there will be a program going around, and it will currently, the program is every 2 years, and every gully will be emptied every 2 years. We are looking at adapting that and making it more in line with the gullies that need emptying, but I think kind of slightly falls outside of this budget report, but it is something that we are very much working on all the time, is the gully emptying, because it's so important around the county. I think we all see flooding in our areas. The number of reports I've had recently from all areas of flooding, it is something that we need to work on along with our drainage programs. Well,
if I could just come back on that, you'll have to forgive me if I'm a bit sceptical, because it does just seem as if the areas that were first started on are the areas where they have the most of the ruling administration as representatives.
I would very much push back on that and say this hasn't just started. This has been going on for a very long time within our organisation. Emptying gullies, we've only just started publishing where they're going. That's the difference. I think if you look back, you will find out that all areas are treated equally and there is no favouritism to different parts of our administration. Thank you very much. On that one, I've next got Councillor MacDonald.
Chair, thanks. Sorry, thanks for taking me twice. I had to come in and comment after Anne's questioning. I fully understand, by the way, as I said earlier on, and none of my parishes are covered. I'm a Lib Dem councillor, so I can assure you there's no favouritism. Just to put it in perspective, when I became a county councillor, and then after 2021, because there was no gully cleaning in my parishes for 5 years, we had to send crews out with metal detectors to try and find some of the gullies, because there was total and utter negligence under the previous administration of gully cleaning. And thankfully, John now and his team are catching up. But when you haven't done that for 5 years, there's a lot of catching up to do. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think, Frank, you want to come in to make a point?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a general point around the proposed investment, that the prioritisation will be based on asset management principles. Therefore, it'll be prioritised based on need. That's the only criteria that we'll be using. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Councillor French.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to pick up what Anne said. Certainly, March North and Fenland not on the list, but I would also like to say a big thank you to officers for this speed that they actually tried to sort out a flooding issue we had at Westray, which was trying to save 4 homes and a church from flooding. 2 weeks ago today, they did actually come out there, clean the gullies and put cameras down. There's still some more work to be done, and hopefully that will be done. But we have a major, so that was done as an emergency, I believe. So I would like to say thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor French. That's really good to hear. Councillor Shaler.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to add that I was very reassured in discussions about the draft budget that we did talk about public rights of way, and we have a similar distance of public rights of way in the county, as you know, as we have in carriageway. And actually, a lot of them have been neglected for a long, long time. And so we will be actually, and you can see this in 3.5, this is about improvements to public rights of way, which doesn't mean changing them. It means actually maintaining them. And I think that will be, well, it was certainly music to my ears anyway. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Shayler. I have to admit, I fear I am failing as a chair, that this was meant to be questions on 1, 2, 3, and I think we've moved into questions debate on the entire lot. So getting us back on track to sections 1, 2, and 3. Does anybody have any more questions? I hope not. Does anybody have any debate on sections 1, 2, and 3? Thank you. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you very much. Section 3, and my screen, of course, has just gone dead. Section 3.5, I think it is, talks about being, no, it isn't, 3.3 talks about priority-led investment and there being more to do. I'm really glad that the proposals in this document address a lot of the things that need to be done, although it is very much limited by the resources we have available, and we are making the best that we can of those. The point I wanted to specifically make was that at the Environment and Green Investment Committee, members of that committee asked very specifically for consideration to be given by the Strategy and Resources and Performance Committee to putting more funding into emergency planning. That was universally agreed by the committee. That committee is something we should be asking for. And I'm raising it here because it relates to the work of this committee as well. Certainly, we are seeing increasing frequency of and severity of flooding. Increasingly, we're seeing storms, more frequent storms. We've gone through nearly a third of the alphabet, I think, now, just in the last couple of months, and extreme weather really is having an effect, which means that we need to do much more in terms of both prevention, preparation, planning and liaison with our partners. We need to be building resilience in our communities, which we are doing through the local flood groups, which are really beginning to play their part now, I think, and also needing to work with other agencies on making information available, communicating between agencies, communicating with the public as well, and working, of course, with our partners on flooding, but also the other civil contingencies that happen. We had some in my own local area, if we're going to be parochial, as we spent the last half hour being, who deals with a fallen tree kind of issue. But at the bigger level, we need to be planning for increasing issues around flooding and other civil contingencies. And it would be really good to see that recognised in this year's budget. And I think that is something that we should support the Environment and Green Investment Committee in calling for.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dupre. I agree with you there. We have seen so many weather incidents in the last few weeks alone. I do actually just want to take a couple of seconds to say thank you to the crews that I'm not sure whether they're watching this meeting, but the work that they do, particularly over Christmas weekends, everything else to keep our roads open and safe is Herculean. So thank you to all of those that are out there doing that on our behalf. And I'm very happy to ask that that is added to the budget proposals. Over to Frank. Anyone else on section 3, or should we move on to section 4? Because I think that's the really interesting one. So section 4 is the section on the Highways and Transport Committee revenue and capital proposals. So this includes the additional investment and the provisional plan of where that capital and revenue should go. So do I have any questions on section 4? Councillor Daunton.
Thank you. I'm on page 28. Under section 4.4.1, and there are a table there on revenue and capital. I'll refrain from talking about gullies and drainage, but look at enhancing public rights of way. And there are two entries there. So one, enhancing public rights of way, which is 400k. And then on the table below, public rights of way improvements to support active travel where there's 1 million. Please, could you give me some details on the difference between those two?
Over to John Munslow. Can you answer that one, Chris?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the revenue funding of 400k is focused around more of the day-to-day and cyclic maintenance that needs to be carried out on our public rights of way, and that maintenance is repair to stiles, small repairs to perhaps some of the bridges or structures, and repairs to fences, trying to think of examples there. So that's more the focus on the day-to-day minor maintenance that then supports that general use. The capital proposal of 1 million, that is the larger scale works that will involve improvements to routes along a whole route, and also the larger repairs and maintenance that's required to replace bridges or put in new accessible access points and gates along those routes.
Thank you, John. Councillor Daunton, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I just do want to come back on that, because obviously for those of us who have large rural sections in our division, the maintenance of the general day-to-day maintenance of the public rights of way is really important. And that's what enables us to improve active travel, to walk safely between one village and another. So I just want to be sure that that kind of general maintenance will be improved as a result of these figures.
Yes, it will be improved. The level of investment that we can afford to do is significant, but it does need to be put across the whole network. So we won't be able to do everything, but we will see an improvement on that route basis.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I think I can speak for us all when I say how important the rights of way are to everyone and all users, particularly in those more rural areas. Do I have anybody else with any questions on section 4, which is the investment? No. Does anybody want to debate section 4, which is those areas of improvements and where we're putting that large capital investment? Looking around, nobody. No. Okay, so let's move on then from section 4. Actually, before we move on, I do just want to say personally how thankful I am of this coming forwards and the huge difference that this will make. This is the biggest. We have some slightly arguments over how long it's been, but it's definitely the biggest investment in highways since the last decade. And while I know it is never enough given the state of our network and the lack of investment that has happened over many, many decades, I really believe this extra capital and revenue will go a long way to improving our roads, because I think when we speak to residents, we will realise how important they are. I don't think I speak for just myself when I say the vast majority of my casework is around the state of our roads and the impact that they have on people's lives, both from a health, connectivity, well-being perspective. It is huge. So I really do welcome this investment and the trust in the highways team to be able to deliver this and deliver meaningful change. So I think it is really good to see that. I mean, it's great to see those public rights of way and the improvements that those will make to people's lives. It's great to see the extra that's going to be going into preventative carriageway maintenance. We've all been talking for so long about a stitch in time and how that can actually, improve the quality of our roads and save us money in the long run. So I'm really, really happy that we might be able to move towards that and be reducing the long-term burden on this council. So brilliant to see this coming forwards. It is really, really great news. Councillor Lucy. Sorry, Councillor Nessinger.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Alex, and I completely agree. This is a really important investment. I particularly wanted to pick up on the last point that you said about the confidence to be able to make a difference, because I think we as an administration have been aware for a while that there were huge issues and concerns with the state of our roads. But actually, when we came into administration, there were also absolutely massive issues within the highways team in this council, that the lack of staff, the lack of capacity, a milestone contract that I think all of us have reservations about. All of those things, I think, gave us significant concern about whether, if we did spend more money on highways, it would be well spent. And I think there are some still some concerns about some of that, but actually the team is now a much stronger team, and not all of the money will be going into the milestone contract by any means. So I think there's been some really important work done over the last year in particular to make it so that we can feel more confidence that this will be money well spent than would have been the case in the past. It is difficult to overemphasize the problems that there were in the Highways Department in May 2021 when we took over control of this council. It was in the most astonishingly awful state in terms of the lack of people in positions. So it's taken a little while to get to a position where we can feel confident that money is going to be put in the right places. But I hope we can have that confidence now, and we are certainly going to try. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Frank, did you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a few things I'd just like to highlight in response to that. So as you've outlined, Councillor Nessinger, we've got more resources and a more stable structure. And I mean, in particular, in the project delivery part of highways and transport, where we've got more commercial and contract management skills. So that enables us to do two things. First of all, hold our main contractor at Milestone to account and make sure we've got appropriate client management. But also we make sure that we use the best procurement route depending on the programme, so we don't put everything through the same procurement route. And in addition to all the investment that's going into roads and highways, there's also investment in the actual highways and transport team. So there will also be improvements that customers should see in terms of responsiveness, that we respond in a timely way, in a efficient way, and that's all that applies to members as well. So there's a number of improvements we want to make in terms of where we engage with our residents, and then we'll couple all that together with a programmed communication plan. So as we put this investment into the highway, there'll be very clear communication with our partners, with residents, with members as we go through the year. So I hope I can give members more confidence that we have got the team set up, we've got the resources set up, we've got the appropriate arrangements in place, and we communicate effectively as we move forward into the next year. So thank you.
Thank you, Frank. And I also just personally want to give a slight shout out to Michael Williams and Emma Murd and his team below that have been getting us that contract assurance that we need to make sure we do get value for money and deliver what we need for the council for the best price available. So thank you to that team and all the work that they have been doing on challenging things. Do I have anybody else on section 4? No. Okay, let's move on to section 5 then. Do I have anybody with questions on section 5? No. Councillor Sharp, I know you wanted to come back in on some things earlier on. That was probably more under section 4, but I don't know whether you did want to do that still. Or
Yeah,
not.
I will. I'm not. I must admit, I find the paper, with no disrespect, very confusing, but still. But yes, so my comment was really around, I know we've got a table that going to page, I'm looking at the appendices, that's really where which I don't know where we're going to come to that, whether we come to that late after section 5.
I don't believe so, but let's do it now then. Let's come
yeah.
to the appendices for you.
That's really where I spent a lot of my time looking at the numbers rather than necessarily the words, because the numbers are what they are. I know there's an analysis further up on table 4 of the capital spend. I'm just trying to find it. Sorry, bear with me. Is that section 3? 33. Thank you, Donna. Yeah, no, it's not the one I was looking for. No, I'll go back to my question. On page 57, we've got a detail of 20 million for 2 years. I just wondered, is there at this stage a detailed breakdown of that in terms of I saw one on one particular place, but
Yeah,
I'm
so
sure
that
that's
was
the same thing.
earlier. That's what I was just talking about previously, which was on page 28, which details the revenue and the capital totals in a table. That's why I was slightly surprised you didn't want to.
Yeah, okay, fine. That's that. I mean, in terms of the budget, obviously, there's many other comments which I'm not going to make today. So in terms of supporting it, I won't be supporting the budget today, but and obviously
So you won't be supporting the investment into highways?
We will be supporting, we want more investment into highways, but yes, I'm not going to vote for your budget today.
Okay, that's interesting that you won't be supporting investment into highways. Okay then, so does anybody else have anything on section 5? And if not, brilliant. Oh, sorry. Well,
I just wanted to add to in response to Councillor Sharp's question. So we've got the indicative allocations under section 4.41 on the investment programme. But in the plan for this committee for March, we'll have a detailed breakdown of the allocation of that programme, then seek authority to allocate and then go into contract. So there'll be more detail to follow if this is approved by full council.
Come back, that's really what I was referring to in terms of detail, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. In that case, sorry, I think that's all of our way through. So unless anybody else has anything else, can I ask, sorry, Councillor Shayler, did you want to comment on something?
Yeah, sorry, just a very, very quick comment about this draft proposal, as it is a draft proposal for the budget. The extra investment, of course, we want that it shows. In the Wisbech Town Council last night, the kind of comments that we got were again about gullies, about flooding, about potholes, the things that everybody sees in their everyday life, those very visible effects. And so any extra contributions to this committee, of course, will be something that we will have something to show for. But it's not only about the extra investment, it's about the team that we've spoken about using the existing investment in better ways as well. So I wanted to mention that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Shayler. If nobody else has anything else, Frank, can I ask you to summarise the outcome of the committee's discussions that have been recorded in the recommendations of the Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the committee, I think, has welcomed the proposed investment in highways, including also the progress that's been made on major schemes such as the A10 and the BP roundabout. But particularly, there was assurance on clarifications provided on work in relation to the gullies, footways, street lighting, signage, cycleways and weeding. The committee sought specific clarification on the savings in the payback period for the street lighting programme, the allocation of gullies funding and how that's going to be based on assessment of need. Also, there's clarifications provided around how funding on public rights of way, how that would be allocated both across the revenue and the capital elements of the programme, and that there will be more investment in general maintenance of public rights of way. And also provided clarification that we've got indicative allocations around the proposed investment programme, which is the £40 million programme over 2 years. But this will come back to committee in March with the detail, seeking approval of the allocations and the delivery arrangements for that. There's also support and a recommendation for a further investment into emergency planning as well, that the committee would like that to be considered by Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee. So I think that covers the key issues that were raised this morning, Chair.
Thank you, Frank. Members, do you agree that that's an accurate summary of the outcomes? Councillor Hay, was that a scratch or a hand wave? I think it was more of a scratch. Okay. Okay, fine. In that case, then, the committee is recommended to consider and scrutinise the proposals relevant to the committee within the business and finance plan put forwards by the Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee the 9th of December 2023. B, recommend changes and or actions for consideration by the Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee at its meeting on the 30th of January 2024 to enable a budget to be proposed to full council on the 13th of February 2024. And C, receive the fees and charges schedule for this committee included at Appendix 2. Now, I believe, Councillor Sharp, you indicated that you might not be supporting this budget and the investment in highways. So let's take a vote on this one. Can I see those in favour of the budget? Can I see those against? Thank you. And any abstentions? Brilliant. Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much, everyone. So item 5 on the agenda is the review of highways operational standards in relation to weeds management. Please can John Munslow, Assistant Director of Highways Maintenance, present the report? Oh, sorry, is it Frank instead?
Before we move into that, I just wanted just to say a couple of things about what's happened up until now in terms of management of weeds. So I think really just to highlight from executive director point of view, I recognise that the way that we implemented the proposed changes last year weren't the way that we would want to go forward. So in particular, I feel that we didn't engage effectively with town and parish councils, district councils, and with residents around proposed changes. So I think it's really helpful that we've done the review and we are proposing changes, and clearly what we want to do going forward is make sure we do engage properly as well. So just really, I suppose it's to highlight that we apologise for that situation in terms of last year, but we clearly have learned from it and want to take that forward on a more positive basis, particularly around communication. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. Over to you, John, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. So there are 3 papers today that relate to our highways operational standards, or HOS, as it's often known internally. These are the operational standards and policies that set out how we manage the highway network in a way that ensures safety, value for money, and long-term sustainability. This first paper is the management of weeds in the highway. As part of the financial year 23-24 business planning process, the County Council agreed a policy change relating to how we manage weeds on our network. The change effectively removed the cyclic chemical treatment of weeds, moving to a principally non-chemical reactive approach. And this was anticipated to provide benefits as are set out in section 2.3 of the report and result in financial saving. In autumn of 2023, we undertook a detailed review of the impact of that policy change. This was to gain an understanding in detail of the impact on our communities and on our highway network. This review included a survey of local members, district councils and town and parish councils. Alongside this community engagement was a review of the impact on the streets, the environment and the costs, plus a range of other themes. These themes are set out from section 3.10 onwards. And as the Executive Director has highlighted, we recognise that there are significant lessons to be learned from our execution of the policy. However, officers do consider that in response to the observed impacts, it would be appropriate to change the approach and that this would be possible within proposed service budgets. Since the change to the policy was made, we have experienced a proliferation of weeds in our communities, affecting users and requiring increases in reactive maintenance. The paper recommends changes to the highways operational standards as set out in Appendix 2, and this is to reintroduce cyclical chemical weed treatment in built-up areas. We also want to further consult our communities and stakeholders on these changes ahead of the implementation. And delegated approval is sought for the Executive Director of Place and Sustainability to approve the final draft of the highways operational standards following this engagement, which will take place this March. Should the committee agree, officers will reintroduce programmed cyclical chemical weed treatments. And furthermore, in April and May, to ensure the resultant weed control level is achieved, we propose to undertake a one-off programme of physical weed removal on routes to be chemically treated, and this is to remove weed build-ups ahead of that treatment, and this will help ensure those treatments are more effective in the control of weed growth. Applied correctly and appropriate, chemical treatment based on glyphosate chemicals is a safe and efficient treatment. However, officers will continue to work with partners to explore alternative and innovative treatment options, building on the work set out in the paper. The policy review in this paper responds to a County Council motion of October 2023, and the paper and all its associated decisions will be communicated to all members, district, town and parish councils. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And just from myself personally as well, I don't think we got this one right. It was good to be having a more targeted approach and be doing what a lot of our communities want to do. I know some of our communities want less chemical weed removal, but that obviously didn't quite work everywhere. So I'm really glad that we now got to a point whereby those communities that really do want chemical removal can have it, and those communities that are more interested in taking it on themselves and doing it in a more kind of sustainable way are also able to do that. So I think it's really welcome that we are listening to those communities and doing what they want to do. Before I go any further as well, I've been contacted by Councillor Simone Taylor to ask to make sure that her feedback is included in this report, because I know that she said that she didn't see it in there. So can I just get a confirmation that her feedback and focus on this will be reported?
Yes, Chair, I can give that confirmation. We will.
Brilliant. Okay, moving onwards then. We now have questions in the debate. So Councillor Hunt is first on my list.
My first thing, Chair, which was I was trying to, on my agenda, I've got slightly confused because I've got the review of highway operational standards in relation to weed management, and on the top of a page is item number 6. And then I go further along and it got peat soil affected roads, agenda item number 5. Now, I don't think that's correct. And so I'm a bit confused about which agenda item we're on.
Let me double check this myself, but we are certainly on weeds management as a discussion.
That's what I thought. So we're on weed management irrespective of the number it's got.
Yeah, irrespective of the numbers, we are on weeds management.
Just to come in there, Chair, I think on the electronic version, it is item 6, although I've got a copy printed off the agenda so for reference, and it's item 5. There's obviously the actual pack, I think, has got a wrong item number.
Okay, well, as long as we're talking about the same thing, we're all talking about weeds management. Let's go on that one. I apologise if there has been a typo in the agenda item order, but weeds management, Councillor Daunton.
Yeah, thank you. It's just a simple question, and that is, and obviously I'm pleased about the change, and thank you for the presentation of the paper. Communication. We've got to have effective communication on this with parishes, districts, and I think it would be really helpful for members to have in advance what communications are going out when and the level of explanation that's going out. And then finally, I just have to come back to the gullies again. Please can we make sure that effective weed culling is done around gullies so gullies are not blocked? Thank you.
Thank you. John, do you want to come back on that?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, effective comms is key, and yeah, we recognise and apologise that the communications were not effective in the application of this policy. They're not what they should have been, and they're not what they will be in the future. And we are putting together a full comms plan that will ensure that we have that plan to follow and make sure that the communications is effective with the communities, town and parish councils, and also with councillors.
Thank you, John. And before I go any further, you are right, Councillor Hunter. I've just checked. This is item 5 in order, but it is numbered item 6. So apologies for that typo there. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank you for being man enough to put your hand up and say, we got it wrong. And I think the reason it was got wrong is because there was no communication with districts, towns and parishes. And I hope now a lesson has been learnt that in future, when we're making major changes that affect the parishes, towns and districts, that they are consulted. Getting away from that, we were told when this was introduced, it was give us a saving of 120,000. In this report, it's now admitting that in actual fact, it was a net saving of 101,000 due to extra works having to be carried out to remove hazard weeds. We are then told that from 24-25, the cost will be 180,000 and 135,000 for future years. Now, presumably the difference of 45,000 is because of the extra works that need doing because weeds have not been treated effectively over this past year, which would further bring down that 101,000. I highly support this with built-up village and town areas within 40-mile limit or below, that we carry out planned chemical weed control with a minimum of 2 treatments in each year. What concerns me is where it then goes on to say where communities prefer that weeds are not treated or removed, the council will engage and agree a local standard based on engagement with the community. What I feel we need to make sure is where particular towns or parishes say they don't want it, they should have to show some evidence base that the residents in that particular town and parish are wholly behind them on this. Also, what we also need to be made clear, we've already found that without doing it for 1 year, there was build-up and there was damage to pathways and roads. And what concerns me, if certain areas opt out, who's going to be responsible for the extra costs in the years going forward if it causes extra damage that wouldn't otherwise have been caused?
So just to pick up on that point, Councillor Hay, I think where areas are opting out, it's not necessarily that they're letting everything grow, it's they're doing it more manually. And those areas are actually, you know, having their own teams that go and do it. And we do see around the county teams that really want to be engaged in roads management and particularly in wildlife. I know I've seen Wild Shepreth, there's a bunch of other ones around that really are interested in making this work and making it happen and doing it in a more sustainable way. So I don't think it's that it will be causing damage, it's more that they will be doing it by non-chemical means, although we obviously do have to be aware of any damage and make sure it doesn't happen. But where they do it, it does need to be in line with that. John, do you want to come back on that point though at all?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And as you've said, where town and parishes and communities wish to opt out, we will engage with them to understand that the whole community is supportive and that weeds will be managed, but in a non-chemical means in a different way. And as you introduced, the additional cost on the 24-25 year treatment programme takes into account that need to go around and do that physical removal so that the future treatments are effective. Thank you.
Thank you for that assurance.
Brilliant. Thank you. Next, I've got Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do support this, and it was unfortunate that it was sort of pushed through without any real debate. But I've got a couple of questions and a couple of points really. On 1.1, we're saying that by doing proactive weed control, that will reduce carbon emissions compared to what we've got at the moment. Presumably that's because we had to do reactive work in some areas. I don't know. That will be the first point. I'm guessing that's what the answer is. Then it's touching on communities that do it themselves, and I think it was in the, because I certainly had one of my parishes who wanted to go out and do it, and I think it came up, and I can't remember definitely, but I think it was in the Highways Improvement Board. We were told that because of health and safety, they couldn't go anywhere, do any work on what was the roadway, i.e. clear the roads by the curb. So I told them that. So that would be one of my concerns, where communities want to do it themselves. There obviously is a health and safety implication, and I presume I don't know how we cover those communities who want to do it themselves for that. I'm not against communities doing it, it's great. But I certainly remember that answer some 6-9 months ago, but I can't remember exactly. And then presumably we've been doing ragwort and Japanese knotweed. I had one of my parish councils last Monday actually. There was a particular local issue there, so there was about 4 or 5, unusually for a parish council, 4 or 5 members of the public there. And one of them raised about hemlock. I don't know how apparently being dangerous to cyclists, because obviously apparently you can get quite a bad rash from it, and I don't know how big that is an issue within the county, because it's certainly never been raised with me before. But yes, I do support it, and those will be my 2 points really. If John's able to answer those, thank you.
Yes, and I'll just come as well to say quickly, the policy that we agreed is that we would remove dangerous or nuisance weeds. I don't think we fully did the nuisance side of it. The dangerous side of it, though, I believe was always carried out. But John, do you want to come back in there?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, with regard to communities carrying out weed treatment and weed removal themselves, then when we work with them, we'll be making sure that what they propose is in accordance with the legislation and guidance for safety when working within the highway, and general health and safety legislation, to make sure that what they're they aim to do, they can do so in a safe way. The ability for a community to do things themselves is different depending on the type of road because of the more traffic and the danger that presents. But we will work through that with communities so we can come to practical, deliverable, safe solutions. The noxious weeds such as ragwort, that was the treatment of those continued. That wasn't affected by the policy change. With regard to hemlock, I will need to have a look at what the guidance, etc., is on the treatment of that. Hopefully I've answered all the points.
Yeah, just come back. Yeah, I'll be curious. I'm curious to know what the issue is around that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sharp. Councillor MacDonald.
Thanks, Chair. Just two comments. Reference what Councillor Daunton mentioned on gully cleaning. Yes, John's favourite subject. And weeds. Comment from my parish councils was we seem to be increasing our biodiversity net gain by growing a lot of weeds in our gullies, but so that's good news and very welcome. A more serious point. So I think since the last committee, I think I'm right in saying that the European Union reviewed glyphosate again. So whilst I fully understand people have concerns, the independent scientists in the EU have given it a clean bill of health. So the message I try and give my parishes is please, don't be so concerned, partly for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. I have to admit, I'm slightly whelmed by the fact that everyone's now worried about gullies over potholes. That at least means that perhaps we're doing slightly better with the potholes, getting on top of it. Councillor Nethsinger.
I'd be very nervous about making any assumptions about that. I just wanted to say I am also very supportive of this paper, and I think there is absolutely widespread recognition across the council that the way in which the changes that were brought in last year was not right. They were rushed. There was much too much. There was not enough communication. There wasn't enough liaison with districts. So I'm very supportive of what's happening here. I do think it's important. I think we've had a lot of agreement on that. But I just wanted to speak up in favour of those communities who have had concerns about spraying, because mine is absolutely one of them. There's been quite a lot of debate within Cambridge City about biodiversity and the impact of spraying. I recognise that has largely been a Cambridge City focused debate, and that there are definitely some communities within Cambridge City who are absolutely adamant they do not want spraying in their area. And I would like to draw people's attention to, I think it's Appendix 3, which looks at the alternative options that Cambridge City are exploring for how you can control weeds, because I think there's not much question that in many places weeds do need controlling. I think there are a whole range of issues about how we manage our public spaces, our highways, verges, to try and support biodiversity, and particularly to try and support the plummeting numbers of insects that are a massive problem across the whole of the EU. I'm very interested to hear Peter's point about glyphosate, but I think that there are very valid concerns about what is going on in our biodiversity, and we don't want to lose those. Equally, I don't think allowing ragwort to grow in the drains or allowing our gullies to get blocked by large numbers of weeds is the right answer to those problems. But I think we just need to make sure that we are looking at this in a balanced way. I think this does that. I think we should continue to work with the pilot projects that there are in Cambridge City. And I think there's some work that was certainly being discussed in Huntingdon as well around different ways of making sure that their road sweeping vehicles can be more effective. But in order to do that, they have to clear the gullies, that we have to clear the old weeds, the big weeds out first. So this is a good compromise, but I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that the original concerns from some communities about spraying remain, and that we are going to continue to work with those communities to find better ways to manage weeds that don't involve spraying large amounts of chemicals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Netzinger. And I think that is also quite a timely reminder that I think it was last week that the government approved the emergency use of, is it thiamaktham, the chemical for sugar beet that actually has a really devastating effect on bees. And that is obviously of great concern. And our biodiversity is so important to all of us. Councillor King.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to make 2 points. First thing is to thank the Joint Administration for taking on board the concerns that were expressed in the Conservative motion to full council a couple of meetings ago. And I think that's a good example that none of us have an exclusive right to the truth. So I think that that was a very welcome development. And I really do support this idea of flexibility, of allowing individual communities to choose how they want to deal with this problem. That's absolutely right. And finally, I just want to follow on from Councillor Hayes' comments and thank John Munslow, the officer, for the fulsome apology for not consulting properly with parishes. Certainly there's a lesson to be learned there, but it's very welcome that John said that. And I think that sometimes public bodies are not very good at apologizing. And I think that that is a very good development from John. So thank you, John. And thank you, Chair, for this new policy, which I will be supporting.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a welcome development, and this is an administration that listens, and I think this is evidence of that today. I do remember the environment in which the budget last year was set in the aftermath of the Truss Kwarteng budget and the absolute pandemonium that caused everywhere. And clearly we were having to cope with a very difficult and very unsettled financial situation across the piece. That said, clearly, for whatever reasons and in whatever way, this wasn't the right thing to do at the time, and I'm very pleased to see that we are listening and adjusting accordingly. As some others have said, I very much like the localism aspect of this and the opportunity for communities that want to take this on for themselves to do so, and I think we need to take a very outcome-focused view of that. The thing we're interested in, partly it's the environmental issues, and there's been that discussion about glyphosate and so on, but ultimately what we want is weeds not to be causing a problem on our highways and for our drains, and therefore the issue is what's going to solve that problem, not so much how it's going to be solved. And if communities want to do that differently, that's great. The other thing I would like to see develop, and I've said this before, is greater work with partners. It is one of the joys of a two-tier authority that we are responsible for dealing with the weeds on the highways, and the district councils are responsible for sweeping the roads, and it would be lovely if those two could be working more in happy synchrony. The third point I wanted to make was, yes, there may well be issues about where people can work, volunteers, members of the community can work in the highway, but that's true in other things that we do where there are communities playing their part. For example, community speed watch, there's places where you're not allowed to go, and things like community gritting, where there is, your microphone is on, Councillor King. Community gritting is the other thing where there are constraints as to where members of the public can go and work in the highway. So we've already got that well embedded in other things that we do. I don't think it's a problem if we're going to be seeking to see communities doing more in this realm as well. And just a final point on Hemlock. We had a lot of this in my part of East Cambs last year. It was raging everywhere. Lots of communities were talking about it. Partly, I believe it was due to the particular weather conditions last spring, but it was very problematic, and I the district council in East Cambs was also having to deal with hemlock and other noxious weeds in its own pieces of land. So I would recommend that Councillor Sharp contact his own district council officers at East Cambs who are well versed and practiced in offering advice on dealing with hemlock. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor de Bray. Councillor French.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, thank you for reviewing this. I fully support this. Going back about what communities do, there is a community document that I knew about some time ago. It does need upgrading, and in that document, it does tell you what you can and what you can't do on the highways. So I think if we maybe when you have time, look at that policy document. But certainly in Finland, we have got a great problem with hemlock and Japanese knotweed. So I fully support this, and thank you.
Thank you there, Councillor French. I think we have a ghost coming in through the door that supports that as well at the back. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you for letting me come back. Just really touching on partly on what Councillor Neffsinger was saying about looking at Appendix 3 on Cambridge City. Certainly what I was thinking, certainly the parish I mentioned, we're looking at more manual weeding. Because I look at some of these and like flame guns and think that's probably more of a health and safety risk than sounds great fun actually, but but being serious, obviously, and I'm sure our officers will, is if communities want to do that, they're not all well and good, providing I think as colleagues on both sides have mentioned that it's not affecting gullies and that sort of thing. But safer the better, really. Yeah.
Brilliant. I will encourage our officers not to get in touch with Elon Musk for the flamethrower gully clearance service. Councillor Coutts.
Just a thing which I'm sure all colleagues here will agree with, in supporting our officer team as they supervise the various contractors at work, whether it's on weed spraying or gully clearing or whatever. It's helpful, I'm sure, to officers if we do point out areas where after we've got the cycle come round, they might have missed particular gullies. And I think contractors do require supervision and keeping up to the mark on these things. So whichever issue it is, I'm sure we're all going to be active in just helping out that way.
Thank you, Councillor Coutts. And just to come in on that one, I was actually in one of our depots the other day in Witchford, and it was really great to see the photos they've got up now about potholes and showing what a good job is and the work that's being done to improve quality there. So it is really good to see, and I really do support that we should be holding our contractors to the highest quality of things. So it's good to see the work that's going on. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. I like this item, and I think it's got huge merits. But I think we always, one or two things we should always keep in our mind. There's a completely different society and road use in the south of a county and the north of a county. And although we are all Cambridgeshire, it's a big county and there's a lot of differences. And with that in mind, I feel this has underlined the importance of consultation. And if you take most of the troubles in the world are caused by people not talking to each other. And I think that to just introduce something without proper consultation, and I can think of all sorts of wide things that are going on as well, where we need more consultation. But please, let's learn a lesson from this and let it spread a bit wider. So when we're thinking of doing something to a community, ask that community what they want and how they want it. And there's a fair chance that there'll be different points of view. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Shaler.
Just very briefly to follow on from that, actually, when we make changes, we will get it wrong sometimes. And the ability to see that as a learning opportunity, I think, reflects well on us here. And one of those learning opportunities is about the consultation. I think we are a very pragmatic committee and facts matter. And as Councillor King said, the truth does matter. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Shaler. Do I have anybody else? No. Okay. Thank you very much. So to summarise, the committee is recommended to A, note the outcomes of the review that has been undertaken regarding the implementation of the current weeds management policy that was introduced in April 2023 as outlined in Appendix 1, I assume that is. Approve the draft revisited the revised highways operational standards as outlined at Appendix 2 in relation to the management of weeds for consultation with local stakeholders, and C, delegate authority to the Executive Director of Place and Sustainability in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of the committee to approve the final draft of the highways operational standards following consultation with stakeholders. I don't think I've seen any opposition there, so can I take that by affirmation that we all agree with that? Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, item 6 or number 5 in your agenda reports is the item on peat soil affected roads, and presents the report on peat soil affected roads, safety and management. John Monslow, can I hand over to you to present that one, please?
Thank you, Chair. Well, as we discussed in the previous item, safety forms a fundamental principle of our asset management approach and our highways operational standards. And this paper, which responds to a full council motion, which is set out in section 2.1 of the report, sets out the County Council's proposed short, medium and long-term plans for safely tackling the difficult issue of peat soil affected roads across the County Council's network. A significant proportion of our highway network is on peat type soils, and these roads are particularly susceptible to rapid and extensive structural damage. This is caused by the movement of the peat type soils that the roads sit on. The soils expand and contract with the seasons and the weather, and the movements of these soils are compounded by the extreme hot, cold or wet weather conditions that we have been seeing. We've identified so far 156 such affected routes, a number of which are subject to high usage, including from heavy agricultural vehicles and heavy goods vehicles. The County Council continues to invest in tackling the risks associated with soil affected roads, and this is set out in section 3.1. And we've changed the highways operational standards to better address the maintenance of these roads, particularly for vulnerable road users. Our investment and use of different repair approaches to date has delivered positive outcomes, though repairs are not as long lasting or what we would expect on a normal road. And we continue to investigate and try innovative solutions, learning what works best for the different situations and defects on the various routes. The peat soil affected roads is a national issue, and it is important we work with other affected stakeholders to make the economic and safety case to government for the long-term investment needed. A lobbying plan is set out at Appendix 4, outlining how we will use our evidence base to influence decision makers. And section 3.9 of the report sets out the short-term approach to managing our peat soil affected routes. This includes combinations of physical road repairs, signage and traffic management solutions, such as temporary closures, traffic management and weight restrictions as appropriate. And it is important that we direct our resources in a way that delivers the greatest safety and economic benefits. To inform our priorities and a medium-term investment programme for the affected roads, we've commenced a process of detailed route risk analysis, and we've completed the assessment of the first tranche of roads. These first 25 routes are those with the highest traffic volumes, and we will continue to assess all the roads to better understand and prioritise their maintenance to ensure user safety, and this is described in Appendix 3. In parallel, we continue to review safety and risk across the whole network, taking action where safety issues are indicated or manifest. The committee today is discussed an item on the 24-25 financial year business planning proposals. And alongside general carriageway allocations, we propose to invest specifically in soil affected routes. And we will do this whilst pursuing additional funding through available opportunities, such as the Combined Authorities Climate Fund. The committee is recommended to agree the actions set out in this report, note the work undertaken to identify and prioritise peat soil affected roads, and note that the actions outlined in this report can be delivered within the proposed budget for 24-25 financial year onwards and through existing compliant procurement routes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I'm going to attempt not to sneeze at the moment. Moving on to questions of clarification debate. Do I have any members that would like to ask a question or start the debate? Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. this is one of the most important issues for residents in the division in which I live and for a lot of residents across the county. It stems from a number of issues. Firstly, roads that weren't built for the type or volume of traffic that is now, now using them. The neglect for decades. And I think Appendix 3 of this report was utterly shocking. The fact that we had to devise our own numbers and our own descriptions of how bad these things were, because the method we were using to assess how bad they were stopped well before how bad these roads are. That was extraordinary. And the third thing, of course, is climate change and extreme weather and the effect that changing weather patterns have had on these roads. This is a very major project. It involves practical intervention. It involves lobbying. It involves engagement and communication with a lot of people. I don't mean to be rude, but I think that the Highway Service is better at some of those things than it is at others, but we need to be good at all of it. In particular, I think we do need to be really effective in building together, putting together that strong lobby that is needed to persuade the government to find and to release the funding that we need for this. There's always funding for new roads everywhere. It's really, really hard to find funding for the roads that we've already got, and we need to do that, and we need to do that in huge numbers. So I do think that the lobbying aspect of this is critical. And I'd be interested to hear more about the role of parishes, which is mentioned as being part of that lobbying and building that case, and how our parishes can assist us in doing that. Engagement also with the parishes, and that's really important, I think, as part of the prioritization process. But I think engagement too with us as elected members and representatives of our communities. And I'm not going to suggest an amendment, not least because it's too late for that in the process, but also because I just would like the assurance of yourself, Chair and Vice Chair, that you're going to think about and work with officers on how we as members can maintain strong oversight of this to make sure that the energy behind it is continuing and that things are happening. So I'd be grateful if you could give some thought to that, Chair. Meanwhile, I think it's really important to liaise with parishes about the prioritisation decisions. We're talking in the report about prioritisation based on volume of use. That may not be the most important thing. Some roads may be more dangerous than others. Some roads may be cheaper than others to solve, actually. And I think also I would welcome some timescales around some of this as well, because it seems a bit light on by when we can expect to have done certain parts of the process. The other thing I wanted to say was I think in some respects there may be a horses for courses aspect to this. Suitable East Cambridgeshire, home of horse racing. The list that we've got of 153 roads comprises A roads, some quite big A roads, the A1101, the A1123, the A142, all are on the edge of or within my division and carry huge amounts of traffic for quite significant purposes all day and sometimes all night. So those are big roads that are going to be difficult. They're important, they're busy, they are very strategic, and they are difficult to shut for long periods of time to do the work that needs to be done. There are B roads that connect settlements. They maybe have slightly less traffic. Some of them don't have slightly less traffic, actually. And I'm thinking of ones like Chain Causeway in my own division, which carries a significant amount of traffic. And perhaps we should be asking it to carry less, because there are alternatives and it is used as a cut through. And it shouldn't be. There are, in my division, long cul-de-sacs. Sorry, I think the S should be the end of cul, not the end of sac, but never mind. Long cul-de-sacs such as Adventurers Drove, where you go miles to access about 4 houses. And that's really expensive to maintain, but it's absolutely essential for those houses at the end of it. But there are also short cul-de-sacs, and I'm thinking there in my own division of Headfen Drove, which is on this list and is no way like the A1101 or the A1123 in terms of how you mend it. And I was very interested to see the comparisons between the different methodologies in the paper and the suggestion that there are some methods of intervention which could last for 8 or 10 years or something, and others which seem to be being deprecated that might last for just 1 or 2. However, that is an aspect of the volume of traffic that passes over it. And I would suggest that a road such as Headfen Drove, which is a very short stretch of road that serves about 4 fishing lodges and about 6 letterboxes, but is their only way in and out, might actually be more suitable for that cheaper intervention because you don't have the huge volumes of traffic going over it. And you might be able to do that quite quickly and cheaply and make it last 2 or 3 times the length of trying to use the same method on the A142. So I think it might be quite good to look at the mix and match and what are the things here where we could serve small, short roads, serving few communities that will fall to the bottom of the heap otherwise, but could actually be addressed quite quickly and cheaply by a method which would be unsuitable for some of the larger and busier roads. So I'd like to see some thought given to that. I'd also like us and encourage us to really start using all the tools in the toolbox. I was slightly worried, and my question is in terms of this report, that it appears that there are only 2 roads at most where there is actual stuff going on rather than just some signs going up saying slow. And it would be nice to know that the other tools in the toolbox were being actively explored and used, whether it was temporary speed limits, temporary weight limits, you know, all of those things that are identified in the report. When are we going to start actually using some of them? And finally, I will provide John, and I've already said that, with some comments on the list to try and make that as accurate as it can be. I spent a happy half an hour with the various gazetteers and so on, trying to work out where they were. The other thing, though, I would want to say is there's a reference in here to winter maintenance, which came up as a request on one road in my division, where there had been a car sliding into a fence of a business unit. And we're not reviewing winter maintenance this year. I kind of get that, and I kind of get that we're keeping this under review, but I would like to see the outcome of that review, some of the numbers, some of the things that have happened, and to see whether some of these roads are much more dangerous than they were in icy weather, and whether we ought to be looking at some of them that are on the secondary gritting route actually being bumped up a bit. And I would like to know how members are going to be engaged in that piece of work.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. An awful lot to unpack there. Yes, slightly difficult to take it all in. I guess there's one thing from me that I want to talk about first, though, which is you mentioned our local MPs, and it does frustrate me that a lot of our local MPs are very good at asking for money from central government for large road building projects. They are slightly less good at asking for money for very large scale road reconstruction projects, which is what we really need in this case. So to everybody here, if they do have the ears of their local MPs, please, we do need some real help reconstructing these roads. It is something that is far in excess of what this council can do. So if any of our local MPs are able to lobby central government for that, that is going to be key to actually the long-term fix of these roads. So we really need that help. Councillor Dupre, I think I also picked up something of an ask to have slightly more member engagement on this one. That's something I'm very happy to take away as well. I think as the length of your speech there demonstrated, there is so much to unpack here, and probably slightly more than we're able to unpack in a standard committee meeting. So I think it would be worth, and maybe I can hand over to Frank to talk about the tools and how we might do this going forward, and if you've got something you can say there.
Yeah, I think it's clearly important that we engage all members, but not just by providing information, but proper engagement, so we get two-way communication. So we take that as an action, but I think we'll have something that we set up as a regular engagement process to enable us to review progress and also to get feedback on our next steps. So happy to take that as an action, that we'll provide an update through the action order on how we do that in terms of member engagement. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Some program of member engagement there would be very good. John, sorry, did you want to come back on any of those points? Yeah.
Thank you. I will come back on a few of those points. I think the lobbying plan does set out some timescales and timelines for carrying that out, and we'll be developing that and working on that continued and long-term plan. And as part of the engagement with councillors, we'll be able to inform you of the timescales as they get set. I think the point about highways being more proficient at some things than others is something we recognise, and we'll be seeking the support and specialist input and advice in those lobbying and perhaps non-technical areas. The first 25 routes that we assessed, that has enabled us to come up with a model that includes the use aspects of the route, the general user safety, and it's also including a specific review by our highway safety, road safety teams, or for the A rules, we're also including the international IRAP assessment of road safety. So, we're able to now to apply that model to the rest of the roads, and the team will be looking at which ones are the ones to prioritise. And with safety being a priority, we will be looking at those where they may pose a slightly higher risk, or slightly or significantly higher risk with regard to impact if something happens. So that might be those adjacent to water or on high banks. So we'll look to reprioritise how we work through. And as part of the work, and I think it was in Appendix 3, with regard to the different treatment assessments, that now enable us to look at the different routes and see which one is kind of the optimum one and the optimum point in time. And lastly, just to pick up on the winter maintenance, we are carrying out a review against the latest Department for Transport guidance, and I've asked the team to consider peat soil road affected roads as a particular issue within that review. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. While we've been talking about the quality of the roads, it just shocked me the other day. I was driving past Ben's Yard in Ely, and there's 200 yards of perfect road. The noise went down, the smoothness went, the tyres gripped, because it's a new bit of road, and we want as much as that as we possibly can. My question is really to officers, and to just totally clarify. I'm looking at one of these items, which is in my division, which is in 20 Pence Road, Wilburton. Can I assume and be absolutely sure that this will also include the part of that road that's in Cottenham? I'd hate to think that the road improvements went down to the river and then stopped when it got into Cottenham. The road that we're talking about goes, you know, from Cottenham to Wilburton, then it goes into 2 divisions. So I'd like to be assured of that. And could we also make a plea for just more involvement with local members to say what's going on in their patch, so they can include it and give times of what work's going to be done, what the timetables are, just so we can keep everyone simply informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. On the point of your road, members will know that I try and keep this in a non-parochial basis. So I'm going to ask officers to get back to you separately with that one, if that's okay. And I think Councillor Dupre, again, raised the issue of engagement with members. That is something that is key. So we are hearing that across the board. So very happy to take that one as well. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and not repeat what's been said before. I agree with most of what Councillor Dupre said. It is a massive issue, and certainly touching on the member engagement. I think personally we need more member engagement on this, and not just relative to the division you represent. But just a couple of points. I had Councillor Hunt's mentioned Ben's Yard. They're doing roadworks at Ben's Yard at the moment. So last week on a meeting I had to go to Ely, I diverted towards Prickwillow, and I had a massive roller coaster ride. I haven't been down that road for a while, and it sort of shows the issue we've got. I've got not on the 25 list. I've got 2 roads in my division, but yes, and then touching on this is diversions. If we, I know it's been certainly raised by other members outside this committee, but where there's, because of the roads closed for whatever reason, the diversions quite often are sending unsuitable vehicles down very unsuitable roads. So I know it's difficult, but we just need to be mindful of that, I think, because it ends up with possibly causing more issues. And in the paper, obviously weight vehicles is an issue, but we have a lot of this area is a very, very rural agricultural area, and some of the agricultural vehicles now are very, very heavy in terms of weight. So there's a balance. Obviously, they've got to get around to do their business and do, grow the food that we need, but at the same time, they cause an issue through the weight of them. So, and then finally, really, in terms of the consultations with towns and parish councils, I think that's very important. And maybe not just the towns and parish councils where the particular road is on, but also the surrounding ones as well. So, because you might not live in the parish, but you might drive to get to work or to get to wherever, the doctors or whatever, you've got to drive along that road. So I think as wide an engagement as we can get, then would be better. But the paper, I welcome the paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sharpson. Very good points there. And I think we're getting into a bit of an advertorial for Ben's Yard going on. They do have an incredibly good butchers there, I will say. Moving onwards though, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I very much welcome this report. On page 215, I wonder if you can just give me some clarity with regard to 5. I welcome the fact that you're going to be checking that the signs are up, warning drivers of, bumps in the road and what have you. Because I know in my particular division, where there are instances where the signs have been down quite some time, so I would welcome that coming forward. And I would also welcome, with regard to the photographic records that you're going to ask Milestone to do, how often are you going to be asking Milestone to check such depressions in the road? I can think of one in my particular division that's right on a right-hand, a right-angled bend, and it is exceedingly dangerous in the way it works. Because if you come off on a bike or anything like that and somebody's coming around from the other direction, you've got no chance of avoiding that particular person in the road. So, and how often are the local highways officer going out to risk assess that particular site? Because I'm quite happy to write to you outside this meeting, John, with regard to this particular issue outside Upton. But, it has been there now some quite considerable time. So I just wondered how you, with regard to those road safety issues, how you're going to deal with those issues going forward and checking and providing the photographic information, not only, I think, to your officers and yourselves, but you need to be providing that to the parish councils, the county council and everybody else, because those sort of roads, particularly in my division, it is a diversion route when Walkenbury Western is flooded. So then you're getting bigger traffic going that way. They're just some brief comments, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. I think I did detect some questions in there. So, John, do you want to come back on those questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. If there are any specific localised issues, if you'd like to feed them into me, I will pass them onto the team. With regard to the regular checking of the routes, in Appendix 2, it sets out the guidance for local highways officers, and they should be looking at the routes on a weekly basis to check that signs are up. And I'll be picking up with the teams to make sure that that is undertaken on that basis. With regard to the specific Milestone, more technical assessments, I'd need to go and check with the team and come back to you with an answer for that.
Thank you very much, John. Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. And my apologies for leaving my mic on before. I'll try and remember to turn it off this time. Yes, a couple of comments. I wouldn't put too much faith in weight limits because it's often forgotten that vehicles who are accessing an area that has a weight limit have every right to do so. And obviously this is very relevant in my division, which is the most northerly one in the county, heavily agricultural, because a lot of the heaviest vehicles are agricultural vehicles. And that's one of the problems we face, that the size of agricultural vehicles has increased exponentially in recent years. So that is a big factor, I think, in the damage to roads. So that's just a sort of observation. A couple of suggestions, looking at Appendix 4, as to how to raise the profile of this. I agree with everything suggested there, but I've got a couple of further suggestions. I think it would be useful to include Highways England in that list of partners. Certainly, again, in my area, Highways England control the A47, or they're responsible for it. And the A47 does seem to be pretty well maintained. So I think it would be very interesting to get some take on how Highways England managed to maintain their road. Probably more money would be one of the answers you'll get. The second thing I would suggest is using social media. It is possible quite easily to get an online petition going. One that I'm familiar with is, I think, change.org. And I think using that to raise this profile of the campaign would be a really good thing to do. And you're not limited to one petition, you can put in several, and you can do a petition for a particular road. And I think that, again, just raises the profile, particularly with central government. And the third thing I would suggest is maybe looking at forming an alliance with our neighbouring councils, which is suggested there. And there is one that has worked quite effectively, which I'm a member of on behalf of this council, the A47 Alliance. So I think that there is some scope for developing that sort of partnership. And finally, I think that it's really important that we keep the momentum going, as Councillor Nethsinger said. And can I suggest that we add to our forward agenda plan, perhaps a further report to come in the second half of this year, because we should have some stuff that has happened by then. And if it hasn't happened, then I think we as a committee should be asking that question. So that's some suggestions and some comments. And I'm going to turn my mic off, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much for turning your mic off, Councillor King. You're obviously just not talking enough today. Just on your point of national highways, I believe the stat that I read was that they spend 31 times as much on their road maintenance, or they have 31 times more budgeted than we do. So it is frustrating how much more money they get than we do to be able to maintain our roads, and might well indicate some of the difference there. In terms of adding it to the forward agenda plan, obviously, I think I've said before, agenda planning comes via spokes, but I think it is something we will be coming back to again. And I think Councillor Dupre's suggestion of how we engage with members, we are going to have to find out the best way of being able to do this, because this is not a problem that's going to go away overnight, and it's going to require lots of work by all of us. So I think we need to work out the best way of what that is. I will expect to come back to this committee at some point, but also I would imagine it will be discussed outside of this committee with another group as well, because we do need to be involved in how that works. Councillor MacDonald, you're next on my list.
Thanks, Chair. Just one observation and, well, two observations. So, first of all, I think that the review that John and the team have done is one of the most comprehensive we've had. And I think it's a big step forward, what we have here, you know, from many different aspects, prioritizing the problems, looking at which roads are mostly significantly affected. Whilst not an expert, I'm sure there are factors in here which are climate change related. So we shouldn't lose sight of that. And I think the team's done a good job. I'll be curious whether Alan and co, who's voted against the budget, and considering there's 5 million of capital in here, are going to support this particular paper. I was very surprised when they didn't, apart from, I think, Councillor Hay and Councillor King abstained. The rest of the group didn't support the budget. And this is the largest capital item of 5 million in the total capital. Whereas for many of us in the rest of Cambridgeshire, flooding, which is 3.5 million in terms of capital expenditure, is second place. I haven't got a problem with that. This is obviously a serious problem, but considering they voted against the overall budget later on, I'd be curious if they're voting for this paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor MacDonald. Good questions there. Councillor Shaler.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I wanted to also thank John for the depth of this report, and it's something that obviously we will need when we lobby government, and we're not the only county in this position. And when we're talking about 5 million and various bits and pieces, the point has been made before about the priorities from central government and the Department for Transport. And I'm not saying that we don't need these other major road schemes, but just as a comparator, the A428 National Highway Scheme is a £925 million scheme. So these numbers, the difference in the kinds of things, the roads, these soil affected roads are significant in terms of communities and our economy. They are very important to us, but bear in mind this disparity in just the amounts. So anything we can do to lobby government would be a huge help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And obviously, just to point out that Anthony Brown is now a Transport Minister. So if anyone has a better ear of Anthony Brown than I do and could convince him, please, we do need money for this. It does boggle my brain slightly. The government talks about the level of highways maintenance funding we're going to get in the wake of HS2 and how many billions that is, that currently next year it translates to us to be £2.3 million, which when you put that into the context of what Councillor Shays just said with the A428 upgrade, quite frankly, is peanuts. And when you put that into the context of what the British Asphalt Association says we need in maintenance, which is tens of billions, I think it's 18 billion or something like that. It's a huge amount that we are just not getting, and it is no wonder that so many of these roads are suffering. And while the peat soil affected roads are unique in the level of investment that they need, it is the same across the board at just how much investment we need and that we are not getting from central government right now. So anybody that has those ears, please do be chewing them off right now. Brilliant. I don't have anybody else on my list. Anybody else? No. Okay. In that case, then the committee is asked to agree the actions set out in this report to manage peat soil affected roads following the motion of 17th October 2023. B, note the work undertaken to identify and prioritise peat soil affected roads. And C, note the actions outlined in this report can be delivered within the proposed budget for 2024-2025 onwards and through existing compliant procurement routes. Obviously, note point C there, but let's have a vote on this one. Can I see those in favour of this motion? Okay, I believe that is unanimous. That you passed. Interesting. Right. It is now 12 o'clock. We've been going for 2 hours. So I suggest we have a quick 10-minute break. If we can all be back here at 12:10, we will continue. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, members, let's restart. Councillor Dupre, come on. No, I feel my authority is being undermined. Councillor King.
Yes, Chair, I just wanted to tender my apologies. I'm going to have to leave at 12:30 or shortly thereafter because I have a hospital appointment. So my apologies for that. Thank you.
I'm sorry to hear that, Councillor King. I hope everything is well.
Well,
we've also lost Councillor Gardner as well. So let's try and rattle through this, shall we? While giving everything the attention it deserves.
I appreciate your kind thoughts. It's not a life-threatening condition. So you're not going to get rid of me that easily.
Yes, congratulations on your appointment. Well done for playing the game and getting it. Okay, so item number 7 presents us with a report on active travel network maintenance hierarchy. John Munslow will take us through the report. John, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This is the third paper relating to the highways operational standards, and this focuses on active travel and the way that we are tailoring our maintenance regimes to ensure the safety and attractiveness of highways and public rights of way for all forms of active travel. Members of the committee are asked to approve further changes to the highways operational standard as set out in sections 3.4 and 3.5 of the report. The report also provides an update on the development of an active travel maintenance hierarchy. Now, hierarchies are a powerful tool in categorizing the highway network to inform investment, maintenance and management approaches. Whilst the principle of an active travel route hierarchy is recognised in the National Code of Practice, there is limited guidance or live examples of this in other areas, and our offices are working to set a national exemplar. A project is underway to create a hierarchy to manage the county's active travel infrastructure and public rights-of-way networks to support maintenance that promotes use by and for all users. And the use of these hierarchies will help direct available funding for most benefit, support our prioritisation, and also help protect the environment and historic nature of routes whilst enabling improvement as and where necessary. The key principles associated with hierarchy development are set out in section 2.10, and it is key that this work is evidence-led and officers are collating additional information and data to inform the work. And we'll consult with our communities and key stakeholders later in April. The draft hierarchy will be developed based on this feedback, and we will formally consult on that proposed draft hierarchy in the summer with a view to formal adoption and implementation in the autumn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Now, we have received a request to speak on this item from Linda Worth. Linda, you are the County Access and Bridleways Officer at the Cambridgeshire British Horse Society. Thank you for joining us. You've got 3 minutes again if you just press the button on your microphone. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, I'm speaking on behalf of the Ramblers, the Trails Trust and the British Horse Society. All the comments made earlier about the need to protect the green rural rights of way network are irrelevant to this matter. This is an item about active travel. Cambridgeshire County Council defines active travel as walking, cycling and wheeling. Equestrians are not included. Exclusion of equestrians is synonymous with exclusion of ramblers, dog walkers, runners, off-road cyclists, the environment, and those just wanting peaceful access to the environment on a natural surface. This proposal threatens the amenity of the Green Bridleway and wider public rights of way network. I've provided the committee with comments from the CPCA Assistant Director of Transport. Every mention of equestrian applies equally to ramblers, dog walkers, runners, off-road cyclists, the environment, etc., all needing a natural surface on green infrastructure. Does this committee align with the CPCA statements to protect the green public rights of way network? Chair, today you have repeated and emphasised the word improvement. That's the word used to justify changes from soft to hard top of rural rights of way to the detriment of many, many users. The proposals as set out will not create a greener, fairer and more caring Cambridgeshire. Approval today could result in the public rights of way network being maintained and managed for the benefit of urbanised walking, cycling and wheeling, to the detriment of soft surface users, wildlife and biodiversity. The public rights of way network needs to be removed from these proposals or written undertakings included to protect rural and semi-urban green paths in line with the Council's own climate change and environment strategy, which recognises natural capital and undertakes to invest in and protect our natural environment on which we all rely for health, well-being and wider benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I'm going to hand it over to Mike Williams for an answer to that one, and I might make a brief comment myself. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Walking and cycling are the most often referred to form of active travel because these are the most used modes and are referred to in the Council's definition of active travel in the Cambridgeshire Active Travel Strategy. Equestrians are referred to as non-motorised users and are included in this and supported by the active travel maintenance hierarchy work. See section 3.2 of the report. Walking, wheeling and cycling are by far the most common and increasing forms of active travel that we need to manage and maintain highways and public rights of way infrastructure for. We need to accommodate the growth in these modes of transport to a greater extent than horse riding at present if we are to adopt the climate and change and achieve net zero in transport. The focus of our work at present, as set out in the report, relates to carriageways, footways and cycleways and not public rights of way network. The changes proposed to the highways operational standards in the active travel report are focused on highways defect management. These changes would also benefit horse riders on our highways through the earlier intervention to defects affecting active travel users. The ongoing work on public rights of way active travel hierarchy is where there will be more specific protection and management of routes and services for leisure and historic value. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. I think it's also important to point out here that the Joint Administration's budget proposals that we put forward and voted through today had a massive increase in maintenance budget for public rights of way. So that will affect all users of them, particularly equestrians, walkers, ramblers, all those that you mentioned. The maintenance of those is very key, and over previous years they haven't been given the work that they need, shall we say, and there is more that we can do there. So I do really welcome that improvement in funding and how that will make a difference to our public rights of way network that is so important to so many of us. But thank you, Linda, for coming along and raising your really important points today. Members, do I have any questions or items of debate? Councillor Daunton.
Thank you very much for the paper. Could you just reassure us that there will be an inspection scheme in place to ensure that the hierarchy is implemented fully?
Thank you. Yeah, when the hierarchy is well, if and when it's adopted and implemented, it will act as a platform for us to undertake the regular regimes of safety inspections, which is where we go around every road in the network on a cyclic basis to varying frequencies through the year to identify and repair road safety defects. And it will also be used by the local highway officers to inform their decisions when they are responding to reports from the community.
I would like to follow that up. You mentioned local highways officers. I mean, obviously they have a huge range of duties. So are they also covering footpaths and bridleways, or is that a separate department, a separate group of people? And if so, could you just sort of lay that out, please, so everyone is clear about that?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, the local highway officers are focused on what we generally term the highways, which is the carriageways, footways and cycleways. We have a number of public rights of way officers, and they are the ones that carry out a similar role on the public rights of way, footpaths, bridleways, etc.
I am going to press on that. So if and when this is implemented, we will see a step change in the role of the public rights of way officers and the intervention that we'll see and the maintenance of the public rights of way.
we will see a more network level approach to how we manage our public rights of way. At the moment, it's very reactive, and part of the improvements we'll see will be driven through the extra investment that is being proposed if that comes through.
Thank you, Councillor Daunton. Yes, I think it's important to say as well, this will come up with a network, a hierarchy of active travel users. So those at the top of the hierarchy will see more work if it is and when it's passed. It boggles my brain that until now we've very much thought of our roads as being drivers and a network of drivers trying to get to A and B rather than people trying to get to A and B, no matter how they decide to get there, be that walking, cycling, wheeling or riding a horse. And we do need to make sure that we really consider that and consider those across the board. Next up though, I've got Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd just like to thank John for his engagement with the Cambridgeshire Local Access Forum. I know sometimes the meetings have been quite outspoken, but it's very good of John to take that on, and it's much appreciated, certainly by me, and I think by most of the other members of LAV. John, can you answer a simple question, please? How will this increase the protection of grassroots? Because I think that's really at the heart of my concerns about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. And thank you for the recognition of the engagement with the Local Access Forum. I think it's a very, very valuable forum for us and certainly helps me in my role. With regard to the protection of grassroots, what the hierarchy will enable us to do is to identify where there is likely to be pressure on routes through new development and help us in those discussions in identifying where it may be best to carry out those improvements for the higher volumes of use, which might be walking, cycling and wheeling, and provide that the evidence base for us to have those discussions so that where there is a route that is of historic value or particular environmental value, that we're able to make the case to protect that route, but still enable the improvements that need to happen to support wider active travel.
Can I just follow that up, Chair, please?
Go on then, Councillor King.
Yes, I think that sounds fine, John, as far as it goes. But how will you factor in protecting the interests of the existing users, and how will you consult to ensure that everybody's views are taken into account and given proper weight? Thank you.
Yeah, with regard to consulting, so that the needs, demands and preferences of various users are included. That is included in the development of hierarchy work. So we will be consulting with user groups and communities on the proposed hierarchy as we build it. Sorry, can you repeat I think there was a first part to that question. I'm sorry, I've lost.
There was, and it was, how will you ensure that the interests of the existing user groups are protected if it's proposed to change the surface of a grassed way?
Thank you for repeating. Yeah, so existing user interests protected, and that is primarily through the current process we have for the making changes to services of public rights of way, where we ensure that any project or proposal goes through a process that ensures it engages and consults with the various user groups, and also that as part of the final decision or approval, that the Local Access Forum is consulted so that we can get the views of all the user groups as a whole.
David Allett, I think you want to come in as well.
Yeah, just to clarify that primarily the road maintenance hierarchy is about the approach to maintaining the network, classifying the routes to help to inform structural investment throughout. So the matter of changes to the network, including surfacing, is a separate matter with separate processes. So just want to make sure we're not confusing the two issues.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's a very important reassurance. And perhaps it would be good to include something to that effect in this policy, that, that there is a different policy that covers changing the surfacing of routes.
Councillor King, I think it's important that this is very much like our road hierarchy, which covers how roads are gritted, how roads, are treated on intervention criteria, and we talk about which potholes get filled, how quickly and what it needed. So this is a similar version of that for active travel. It's not about upgrading or changing routes. It's about making sure that those routes that are, essential for getting people around are maintained in a way that enables them to do it. I think we've often seen this comes from originally in certain areas, you'll see roads that are perhaps a minor road for a car can be very major for an active travel user. In the city, we see it a lot that minor roads are actually, major thoroughfares for active travel. In more urban areas, we often see that a public right of way might actually be a major route that needs that work. And our current hierarchies don't really reflect that. So it's making sure that we're reflecting which routes are really important to all users rather than just looking at it from a car driver's perspective. So that's what that's about.
I think that's a very fair point, Chair. And, thank you for that reassurance as well. And I know that you personally have experienced the consequences of poor maintenance in your own life. And so I totally agree with that. And I think that, the reason there is some concern on my part is because changes have been made to existing grass routes without proper consultation in the past. So I think it would be good if we can just be sure that that period is behind us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Yes. Councillor MacDonald.
Thanks, Chair. Just two quick comments. First of all, compliment John and the team. On the budget that we've identified £400,000, because there's a lot more than we previously had, which is great. And also the process in terms of the hierarchy review. Just one suggestion as we go through the summer, because I know John said he will bring it back, which is, it doesn't explicitly say, but to consider obviously county council farms, because we're landowners of 33,000 acres, I think it still is. So I guess with Councillor Dupre leading the farms group, anything that we can do in terms of the farms and public rights of way, we already do some great things. Please could we consider as we go forward? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, can I say I'm all for making cycle routes safer for the cyclists. Unfortunately, in Chatteris, we have very few, if any, cycleways, but we do have a lot of cyclists who cycle on the main highway. And the problem we have there is we also have quite a lot of potholes on the side of the highway next to the curb. And I'm concerned because in 3.2b, it says the definitive map modification order statement of priority enables routes which provide active travel links and which brings benefits to different types of NMU to attract higher scores during priorities. Can't get the word out, you know what I mean? And I'm just concerned that they could get higher prioritization than those potholes on the side of a highway, which are equally as worthy of a high prioritization.
Councillor, I just draw your attention to 3.4a, I believe it is as well, where it does discuss those side of the carriageway issues and those kind of cycle desire lines, because you are right, that is equally important. It's the bit where cyclists are often in the gutter and you end up with a pothole there, or where they're crossing a road, turning and hit a pothole in the middle of the road. So I believe if you look at 3.4, a lot of those concerns are addressed because it is really important. You're right.
Sorry, I obviously missed that, but thank you.
That's all right. It's good that we're all looking at this, and it is good to have that in there. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hayes said most of what I was going to say, but I'll just touch on it. It is in 3.4b, as you say, but I just wanted to make sure we weren't forgetting that, because there are some, not that we get so many active travel users in the rural areas, as we do in the cities, purely because of the safety or whatever. But I think that's important to remember. And the second thing is obviously around the consultation, which I notice is coming back to us in September. That will be obviously useful to see how that's going through and I'm sure it'll get picked up in Spokes or Highways Improvement Board or something like that before then, but it'll be useful to see that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Shayler.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just following on from that, where active travel routes share the carriageway or cross the carriageway, I believe we are leading in the work that we're putting into this. I wonder, in light of Lewis Herbert's visit in the last committee, where he spent 4 days in hospital after his cycle hit a defect, can you say something about the intervention levels that are different? This goes to 210 when we're talking about the differential risk between different users of the highways. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could respond to that. Yeah, the hierarchy will help us to work with the data we've got around defects and users on the network, and then we can look to see how best to prioritize the funding we've got against the risk for the different users. And as we know, a defect can be of a certain size is more of a risk to a cyclist than it is to a car, just because of the size of your wheels, sort of thing. So what the hierarchy do will help us to focus in on there. And the changes to highways operational standards, which are detailed in 3.4, that ensures that when officers are carrying out what we call a dynamic risk assessment, so when they respond to a defect, they will assess where that defect is within the carriageway and within the local environment, and they will then assess it for a repair time scale. What these changes to standards do is make it much more explicit as to when and where they need to be putting that higher priority for a defect, because it is in an area that is important to a specific type of user.
Thank you very much, John. Councillor Daunton.
Yes, thank you. I meant to make this point under the budget paper about signs and lines, but I'll make it here in relation to the this paper. Obviously, it would be really good if we could see an increase in the maintenance of signage of footpaths and other public rights of way, footpaths, cycleways, so that when this paper is hopefully when it's been implemented, that new signage or checks on the signage will be fully a part of the new scheme.
Thank you. Yes, and part of the proposed investment in highways, that funding directed to public rights of way, is for improved signing and wayfinding, and for the carriageway, footway and cycleway network. There is a proposed level of investment for signs and road markings to do the same thing on carriageways, footways and cycleways.
Thank you very much, John. Do I have anybody else? No. Okay. I have to confess, I'm slightly surprised that we haven't seen Living Streets here today, or the cycling campaign, because I think the impact this will have and these changes in this hierarchy will have is brilliant, to be perfectly frank, and it is country leading. I don't think anybody else in the country has been looking at cycling and active travel in this way. So I do just want to kind of draw that out and make sure that John and the team gets the thanks they deserve for that, because I think this is something that we will see being taken on as a model around the country, that we really need to be doing this. And I hope that Active Travel England are paying attention to what we're doing here as well, because it really is brilliant. And it very much frustrates me as well that, again, when we talk about central government, they don't fund us for our footpaths and our cycleway maintenance. They give us funding for carriageway roads. They do not give us funding for our cycleways and our footways, which is quite frankly, astounding and so backwards. So hopefully we can use that to put pressure on. And again, if anybody has the ear of their local MP, please do that. Before we go on though, the committee is asked to approve the changes to the highways operational standards that support maintenance for active travel as set out in paragraphs 3.4 and 3.5 of this report. Can I take that by affirmation? I don't see anybody disagreeing with me violently. That is good. Thank you very much.
And Chair, if you'll accept my apologies, I must go now.
Thank you, Councillor King, and we will see you again. So thank you
all
very
for
much
chairing the
for
meeting.
coming. Item 8 is the performance management paper. Richard Springer, Governance and Performance Manager, will take us through this report. Richard. Oh, okay. Frank Jordan's going to do it. So over to you, Frank.
Thank you, Chair. So this committee's had reports at previous meetings providing an update on existing performance measures and the development of the performance framework. So this paper provides an update on the performance where it's currently measured up until the end of September, which is detailed in more, there's more detail at Appendix 1 there, but also provides an update on where we are in terms of further development of the performance framework. Just a few things I'll just highlight for the committee. So indicators 32A and 32B, which relate to cycling and walking. I think we'd highlight two things. First of all, we don't really have assurance around the data for autumn 22 because I think that's still alive relating to the lockdowns and the COVID pandemic. And we've just received the data for autumn 23. So what we advise the committee is that we provide that further data for the next committee and then review that properly at that stage. So I think we just put that sort of caveat to the data that we have got there. But we have provided in the report just some background information about how that measure is come about and what that relates to and how that compares to other parts of the country. So I know that was a question raised at the last committee. Indicator 43A relates to the rate of those killed or seriously injured. And you'll see that the figure is improving there. But also later on in the report, what we recommend is that we adjust the target there, which is linked to the recommendations at 2.5. So we adjust that so it's in line with the target for the Vision Zero partnership, which is a 50% reduction. So that's a recommendation to just amend that performance measure. And 43C provides contextual information in relation to those killed and seriously injured, which is around the mode of transport that those who are seriously injured or killed that they were using at that time. So the other indicator relates to major infrastructure projects. So 48 projects are included in that, and you'll see we've got good performance with 98% of those projects being delivered with a 3% tolerance in relation to delivery on time and on budget. At 2.3, we also provide some further information about how we're developing operational indicators to support this committee, and we provide some information in relation to things like potholes, gully management and inspection of the highway, which relate to many of the questions we've received this morning in relation to the other items. Also at 2.4, provide a further update on vacancy management. And again, I know the committee's been interested in understanding that as well. So at 2.5, having reviewed some of the indicators further, some recommended changes. So the first is the one I've already outlined, which is to amend the performance measure around those that are killed or seriously injured to align with the Vision Zero target. So that would be a target where we have a 50% reduction by 2030. We're also proposing to remove the indicator from the performance framework in relation to consents. I think having looked at consents, this is relating to major infrastructure projects in particular. It's quite difficult to come up with an overarching indicator. What we think is better is that we present to the committee on a case-by-case basis updates on those relevant consenting processes. That's something that we'll plan to do. So that will be for highways and transport and for environment and green investment, depending on the nature of that consent. And there's also a recommended addition that we add an indicator in the future around traffic collision clusters. I think the final thing I would just say is that in relation to the performance framework for 24-25, we'll review those further to take account of the potential investment in highways. So, for example, those around gully maintenance, clearly if we're going to put more investment, we can increase the level of performance that we should be targeting. So we'll do that review as well. So just moving to the recommendations, it's for the committee to note the progress into relation to performance, to ask us questions as officers around any of those performance measures, and to approve the recommended changes to the performance framework as outlined at 2.5 of the paper. So thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you, Frank. Councillor Daunton.
Thank you very much for the introduction to the paper. A couple of points. On page 345, 2.4, the vacancy rate. I think in the column which where the total is 49, maybe that should be 39. Am I correct, or are my maths wrong there? Anyway, that's a very small point. My main point is it's good news on highways maintenance that a good number of vacancies have been filled. I'm hoping that that will also be reflected in communication with members, that there will be really good communication on highways maintenance to members. I know in the past there's been an issue because of the vacancies, but if we could have some reassurance on that, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Munslow, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, now as we are continuing to build capacity within the teams as the vacancy rates go down, we are have the capacity to do more of those communications that we should be doing, and also as part of the wider highways transformation program, there is a focus on improving our communications and engagement with councillors and our support of yourselves in your role.
Thank you very much. Councillor Coutts.
I had the same point as Councillor Daunton.
Okay, Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the paper. Very interesting. I've got couple of questions, but more comments really. And in terms of, and Frank touched on it, it was on indicator, it's page 354 and 355, where we haven't got the August or the August 22 data. I mean, I'm happy to take it offline. It would be interesting to try and understand what the issues were and to try and get a better picture of where we're going. So I'm happy to take that offline. Page 357, indicator 39, it does, and again, obviously this presumably will pick up some of the soil affected roads that we were discussing in a previous item. But again, happy to try and get a deeper dive in behind those numbers. And then finally on the recommendations, if I can, 2.5.1, changing the target to what is on Vision Zero seems very, very sensible. Totally agree about 2.5.2 and similarly 2.5.3. So definitely support of the recommendations, but it's just a couple of queries that probably can't be answered now, but I'm happy to try and get an understanding of it. But, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. David, do you want to? Okay. Okay. I actually have my own point in this one and a similar one about some of that. I actually just noticed in the report, it mentions the vivacity sensors shown in Appendix A. I don't believe we have Appendix A in the report. We have Appendix 1, but it looks like we're missing Appendix A, which is under 2.1.1. And it'd be good to see those. I was actually in a meeting the other day with the GCP looking at those sensors. They have a very good network of sensors around the city right now. And in the absence of that walking and cycling data from our counts, it would be very good to see what those sensors are saying in terms of walking and cycling. And they are essentially real-time sensors.
Agreed. Fantastic tech. We'll recirculate it.
Okay, thanks. Recirculate that one. Cool. Do I have anybody else on things? It looked like, oh, Councillor Shayla, yes.
Sorry, just a very quick mention of the change in indicator 43A at 2.5.1, the Vision Zero having an absolute limit. I think that's a fantastic change. You know, I've said before, every injury and death across the county, and it's currently around 30 a year as an individual family tragedy, and anything we can do to bring that down is very, very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shayla. Anybody else? No, okay. The final point from me on this would be, I think this committee, if I remember correctly, has asked about the underlying indicators for a lot of these, particularly the maintenance ones. And while I believe previously we agreed that these higher level ones would be the ones that get reported upwards, it would be good to get some of those reports of the lower level indicators at some point to be able to see what goes into those. I think particularly in this committee where while we are nowhere near experts, we are perhaps slightly more aware. It would be good to dive into some of those lower level indicators if we can the next time this comes. Frank, do you want to cover
So that's
that?
covered at paragraph 2.3, where we outline the work that's ongoing on that, and we'll start to report it from April onwards. So it's covered in the report. Thank you.
My mistake. Perfect. Thank you very much, Frank. Okay, so members, the committee is asked to note the progress that is made in developing a performance framework for the Highways and Transport Committee, and B, approve the recommendations set out in 2.5 of this paper. Can I take that by affirmation? Yes, brilliant. Okay, we are racking through now. Item 9 is the Place Sustainability Risk Register, and Peter Gell from Service Director and Regulatory Services will introduce this item. Is Peter? Oh, that's Peter. Brilliant. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. So the report itself provides an update on the approach adopted within Place and Sustainability with regards to the management of risks within its services and the context with regards to risk management across the organisation. The report itself includes a couple of appendices. One is a blank template which demonstrates that used for escalation of risk within Directorate, and the second is the risk register itself, with those risks which are relevant to this committee. Some will be generic across committees, but some will be very specific for this one. In future, it's envisaged that risk will be incorporated within the committee's performance report. This time around, we thought it was helpful to add some additional context, hence that the size would have meant it was an extremely big performance report had it been a single report. Managers will also highlight relevant risks throughout the year as appropriate, where relevant to matters covered within committee papers. And we've seen already earlier today, John very much highlighting some of those highway related risks around sort of the maintenance and quite a focus on safety. So this register picks up a number of those sort of elements. Also, officers present today who will be able to answer very specific questions should they arise in relation to some of those risks on the register. A number of points I just wanted to highlight from the report itself. Two key corporate documents. One is the risk management policy that outlines the systematic corporate approach to how risk is addressed across the organisation, and the management toolkit itself, which has more operational detail within that. A few things, again, also to point out, as those that are very much familiar with risk, again, we use sort of low, medium, high, quite straightforward in that way, looking at likelihood and impact. We also assess residual risk. So residual risk is the risk that is left after we've applied the various mitigations. So initially assess the risk. We look at ways we can reduce that, certainly below the sort of the corporate threshold, which is 16 for high risk, and those mitigations hopefully will either lower the risk, or in some cases, if it doesn't lower the risk, it at least stops it escalating further. Risk is managed at various levels across the organisation. So it's a service level, and the sort of teams here very much within the highway setting, where you've got many programmes and projects. They're very familiar with risk setting within those contexts. Risk then also escalated at a directorate level, and we're on a regular basis Place Sustainability review those risks. And those that have more sizable or present bigger risk to the organisation are those that are considered at a corporate level by the senior sort of leadership team. Risks, if they are realised, can become issues. And I think it's also worth mentioning that risks not always about those things that cause harm. There can be missed opportunities going forward as well. There's a requirement really to report these risks to this committee every 6 months, and that is what we intend to do going forward. And I think that we will sort of focus on at a regular basis within our departmental management teams. One are the high risks. Two, any new risks that emerge, risks that are escalating, therefore need mitigation to particularly control them, and those which actually have moved from a risk to actually an issue that we're having to manage at that point. I think what you've seen today, and I think this ties in well with some of the papers and presentations you've seen earlier, it's very much our approach within Place and Sustainability around adding strong governance to the way we operate. This is a key part of our management meetings, going forward. And it's a sort of a culture within our teams to ensure that we do highlight and manage risk. So that's a very quick fly through really of some of the context. Very happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Peter. Before we go much further, I've looked at the final published version on the website, and it looks like on page 372 to page 398, there's a whole load of blank tables. I don't think they actually contained anything, and it is the same as we've seen previously, but can I just get confirmation there's nothing there that's missing?
Yeah, there's nothing missing from there, Chair. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, members, to Councillor Sharp.
Very quickly, I was going to make the same point about it. I'm glad it's not just me because I was getting confused by it. But yeah, I've got no real comments on the actual risk, but happy to support the paper. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, we seem to have had some problems in how things got translated to the final format on the website this time around, but that's fine. We will look into that. Councillor Dupre.
Could we have a clean copy of it circulated just so that we're absolutely confident that we've seen everything we need to see? Obviously I can't. I think we're just being asked to note, are we? I can't remember what the recommendation is, but until I'm satisfied that I've seen everything I was meant to see, I can't really do anything with this.
Okay, yeah, it would be good to get a clean copy of that circulated. You are right. Yeah, Frank.
Frank, we can circulate it, but if you look on the actual website for where our papers published, you've got the full agenda pack, but we've also got each item listed separately. And under item 9, it's got the cover report and the risk register and the escalation process. And I've just looked, that's the full clean version there. So if members are directed to item 9 on our website, that's the full version. Okay, thank you.
Brilliant. Lorna, as our self-confessed risk junkie, do you have anything else you want to? Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Councillor Daunton.
I'd like to ask a question about the adverse weather risk. And in the light of what we've seen in the last week or two, I mean, we've had storms, high winds, we've had lots of rain, we've had severe cold. So we've had a sort of whole package of weather in a very short space of time. And this is going to continue. It's going to be really, really unpredictable. And it says here that in the text, contingency plans are in place for foreseeable adverse weather events. Are we modelling for unforeseen events and for differing patterns and for the huge changeable nature of our weather because of climate change? And how are we doing that?
I'll probably hand over to John in a minute, but in a general comment in relation to risk, then the aim of reviewing them regularly is to actually checkmate, look for what quite often can be a changing landscape, and sometimes that will be legislation that changes around the framework in which we operate. And there's others, it's the environment around us. So looking ahead, trying to foresee those challenges, how we can better manage those, and technology in some cases also provides opportunities. We know funding's been a discussion today, and depending on the funding available, that provides for the opportunities again in relation to the way we manage things. But I'm not sure whether John wanted to comment specifically in relation to that in a highway setting. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if I come in with regard to how we keep our road users safe as best we can and support our communities during storms. Part of the review of the winter maintenance service is to bring us more in line, brings in line with the DfT, Department for Transport's approach to creating a resilient network, which aims to, following the Department for Transport Resilience Review, to apply the knowledge and approaches that we across the nation apply for dealing with frost, snow and ice to how we react and deal with storms. And as part of that, our fairly new drainage and resilience team within highways works very closely with specialist weather service providers, and it's those specialists that are looking at the models and developing the forecast, so we can then be better informed, and then we can provide a better service. Frank, if I could.
Yeah, thank you for that, John. In addition to that, in the budget proposals that were considered by Environment Green Investment Committee, there's proposed increased investment in the climate change in the environment programme, and that includes further investment to do further modelling around future climate risk and impacts on the community. So that's to further inform what could happen in the future in terms of frequency of adverse weather events and the impacts to the local communities.
I think it would be really helpful if members had more information about what's going on in all of these areas, because obviously resilience to weather events is really important to us on the ground in our communities.
Maybe we could take that away as a bite-sized briefing for councillors on what's going on. And maybe we can add that as an action to deliver a briefing on that. That would be really good. Thank you, Councillor Daunton. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back on what was discussed earlier about this appendices and what Councillor Dupre was saying. I've just gone to the public sector and clicked on Appendix A, risk escalation, and it's exactly the same as what's in our documents from 372 to 408. So there's obviously an issue there.
Yeah. If I may, Chair, in relation to the escalation appendix, that is intended to be blank. So that is just an example of a template that is used within the department should a risk need to be escalated. It has been used in practice a couple of times now within the department, and those risks that have been escalated have appeared onto the main register. So it's only the register itself which is intended to have some content. That was just an example of something used as a method in order for us to review that. So any members of our teams can use that to raise something for us as a departmental team to consider.
I think, Peter, the slight issue is that looks far larger at the moment than an empty one. It's many pages long, so it looks slightly like it's missing something. But maybe we can take that away and make sure that the formatting, if that's presented in the future, doesn't give that impression that a large amount is missing.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Peter. Brilliant. Do any other members have anything they would like to say? No, okay. In that case, then the committee is asked to note the updated place and sustainability directorate risk register. I think we can take that by affirmation. Okay. So item 10 is the committee agenda plan and appointments. The Democratic Services Manager will take us to the agenda plan and appointments. Dan?
Thank you, Chair. Just to note on the agenda plan, a change of title of a report coming next time. It's the EV charging pilot proposal that's listed on the published agenda plan. And it's actually called the Electric Vehicle Charging Cable Crossover Pilot.
Brilliant. Thank you for that one. Hopefully that's not too different, but slightly more verbose in what it actually does. Sorry, Councillor. I can't read. Councillor Hunt. Sorry, can't read your writing, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, I'd just say I'm delighted that the forward agenda plan includes a presentation by Nicola Young about the BP Witchford Road non-motorised user crossing in Ely. I'm delighted to see that. What I would like to ask is if we could put another item in the agenda for the 5th of March. You will maybe remember I had a motion at full council in autumn about the A1421, and in fact Vice Chair visited my area to see this. I think it would be appropriate and very helpful if we could have a report on what's gone on, what improvements have been made, what are planned, what's been agreed, or what the state of affairs is. I'm getting a lot, and I can't see a reason why that shouldn't be in the agenda on the 5th of March to an update of progress being made to make the A1421 a safer place.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. I'm sure you will be aware, having read our constitution, that unfortunately future agenda items has to come via spokes. So I'm sure you can take that up with spokes.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
Your wisdom exceeds mine. But I thought maybe if I brought it up here, there'd be enough witnesses to me asking for it.
There are many witnesses to
no
ask
one
you
would
for
dare
it.
not put it in.
Well, you can take that up with Alan, who's your representative on spokes. That's where we do the agenda planning. But thank you very much.
So you'll tell me the name of the person I've got to contact.
Alan Sharp.
Oh. Okay, well, I can do that, and I will do it through my spokes.
Thank you very much
for your guidance,
Councillor Hunt. Does anybody else have anything on that? And if anyone of my members want anything, they can come in via me. Councillor Coutts.
slightly naughty, but I have it, as it's been mentioned twice, I really would like to welcome the late conversion of Councillor Hunt to a non-motorised crossing at the BP roundabout, seeing as the BP roundabout was reconstructed under the previous administration without such a non-motorised user crossing. So I'm very glad that we're getting there now after several years of hard work by some of us campaigning for it.
Thank you, Councillor Keats. Okay. Oh, yes, Councillor Hunt, are you able to turn your microphone off? Sure. Thank you very much.
I was just ready for Councillor Coots, but I'll turn it off at your request.
Let's avoid that because we are running over and there is still more to do. Let's stop this. Okay, so the committee. The committee noticed its agenda plan, training reports, and appointments outside. Okay, so item 11. In order to discuss the details of the following item, unfortunately, we need to move the meeting into private session, excluding the public and press. Members, do you agree with the proposal to move into private session as set out in the agenda? Yes, can I take the by permission? Okay, brilliant. So therefore, it is recommended to resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the agenda contains exempt information under paragraphs 1 and 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended, and that it would not be in the public interest for this information to be disclosed relating to any individual. To disclose information relating to any individual and information related to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. So brilliant. Can we exclude the public and press?